Chapter 837. Whoosh! A strong gust of wind blew from above Yang Tian's head. At the same time, the black-armored man disappeared from Yang Tian's sight. So fast, while Yang Tian was sighing, he released his mind power and sensed that the black-armored man had appeared behind him in an instant. He did not know how such a huge guy could be so fast. After experiencing so many battles, Yang Tian had long understood that he could not judge the enemy's speed by their size. Pong! Yang Tian leaned to the side and dodged a saber in time. The black-armored man's saber did not hit the ground, but the saber aura it emitted hit the ground and cut a gully dozens of meters long in the hard stone ground. The saber chi continued to extend forward, cutting off several stone steps. Yang Tian was not to be trifled with. In the giant god's dream, although he was a bystander, he had experienced countless battles with the giant god. Although he did not personally use it, he had gained a wealth of combat experience. At this moment, when the black-armored man slashed with his saber and before he could withdraw his saber, he instinctively turned around and the blue saber in his hand trembled. In an instant, dozens of saber auras were formed and enveloped the black-armored man. After slashing with his saber, Yang Tian felt a little surprised because the way he slashed with his saber was not something he had deliberately thought about, but an instinctive slash. After slashing with his saber, Yang Tian also pulled away from the black-armored man. Previously, the two of them had almost touched each other. The black-armored man was very strong, and Yang Tian did not want to engage in close combat with him before he figured out what was going on. Puff, puff, puff. At this moment, Yang Tian actually released dozens of invisible saber auras. The black-armored man could not dodge and could only wield his saber to block quickly. He was very fast and dispersed most of the saber auras in an instant. Only a few slashed at his chest, and there were several marks left by the saber auras on his chest and abdomen. The two of them had each slashed once and separated at this time. This was equivalent to a probing attack to test the opponent's true strength. Ha ha! After being hit by Yang Tian's saber chi, the black-armored man retreated a few steps before stopping. Suddenly, he raised his head and laughed loudly. When he laughed, he sounded very heroic. That's right. If you can take one of my attacks, you'll have a chance to fight them. After laughing, the black-armored man raised his hand and waved it in the air. Clearly, he was pointing at his 48 subordinates. From the black-armored man's words, it seemed that the combined strength of these 48 people was even greater than his. What do you mean? Yang Tian asked. The man in black armor didn't answer Yang Tian verbally. Instead, he lifted his right foot and stomped on the ground. The powerful force lifted a few heavy rocks under his feet, revealing a pitch-black hole. There was actually an underground space beneath the ground. The black-armored man lowered his head and looked at the pitch-black hole under his feet. Then, he raised his hand and grabbed at the hole. A fist-sized creature was sucked out of the hole. It kept struggling in his hand, making ear-piercing screeches. This creature was similar in shape to a pangolin. Its body was covered in green scales. When it screeched, it opened its mouth, revealing 2 rows of sharp red teeth. This was clearly a carnivorous creature, and was very ferocious. This is Crunch. The black-armored man demonstrated the strange creature to Yang Tian and then threw it into the hole. He smiled and said, "If you lose, you'll be their food. We're very hungry, and they're also our food. Therefore, we really hope that you'll be eaten by them and grow bigger." After speaking, the black-armored man took a few steps back and waved his hand. Yang Tian finally understood the meaning of the crack he heard when he first arrived. It was probably the cheers of these hungry people when they finally saw a creature from the outside world. When they saw Yang Tian arrive, it was as if they'd seen food. We don't eat intelligent creatures. Because of this, many of our companions have starved to death. When the 48 subordinates slowly approached Yang Tian with swords in hand, the black-armored man who had retreated outside the circle suddenly spoke. Yang Tian couldn't help but be startled. The disgust that had suddenly appeared in his heart towards this group of people disappeared at the same time as the black-armored man's words. These people were actually not humans. From the aura they emitted, it could be seen that they were originally in the form of strange beasts. But it was these kinds of people who said such words that touched Yang Tian's heart. Cannibalism. When he was still on Earth, Yang Tian had heard many times that some warriors, when trapped by a herd of beasts, would kill each other and eat their teammates out of hunger. Compared to this group of people in front of him, could those warriors still be considered real people? Although Yang Tian was a little touched, at this time, he would not show mercy because of this. It was obvious that if he did not defeat this group of people, he would become food for those crunching people. The 48 tall, black-armored men, holding swords, surrounded Yang Tian so tightly that not even a drop of water could escape. Yang Tian did not want to wait for these people to attack before he retaliated. Taking advantage of the fact that they hadn't moved yet, he spun his body. The formless sword chi emitted from the long blue sword formed a ring-shaped waterfall and slashed toward the 48 people. Pung! But before the sword chi could touch the 48 people, it hit an invisible energy and made a dull sound. At this time, Yang Tian finally understood that when he was surrounded by these people, they had already begun to prepare. The black-armored man who had exchanged 2 blows with Yang Tian just now was undoubtedly preparing for this process. After the collision of energy, soon, the space around Yang Tian began to distort. In Yang Tian's eyes, the 48 people became like shadows in the rippling water. At the same time, a strong binding force also shrouded Yang Tian's body. This was different from the spatial condensation that Yang Tian had encountered before. Its force was not fixed. Instead, it was loose and tight. The force was constantly fluctuating. Every time it fluctuated, the binding force became stronger. Spatial restraint could be used in this way. Yang Tian finally learned something new. Facing this kind of powerful and squeezing attack, Yang Tian did not panic. He stabbed the blue sword in his hand into the ground and immediately raised his hand to hit the blade. Pung! A loud sound. From the blue sword, a strong force burst out, like a high-explosive bomb suddenly exploding. Yang Tian had learned this method of breaking through spatial restraint from Kuang Xing. The sword chi that burst out from the blue sword not only broke through the chaotic spatial restraint, but also hit Yang Tian's body. Hit by the strong force, Yang Tian held the blue sword's hilt tightly with both hands. When the force of the impact began to weaken, he suddenly pulled out the sword and drew a circle in the air. The formless sword chi followed the strong impact and slashed out again. This time, Yang Tian used his strongest force. If he could not break through the opponent's binding, he was prepared to use the power of the black hole chain. Chapter 838. Pung. There was a muffled sound. The sound of energy colliding was mixed with a dozen muffled groans. Space no longer distorted, and the surrounding situation clearly appeared in Yang Tian's eyes. The 48 people had all fallen to the ground. Several of them had been cut in half by Yang Tian's saber energy, and some of them had massive wounds on their bodies. Yang Tian was a little surprised to see this. We've been hungry for too long and have long since lost our original strength. Otherwise, with your current strength, it would have been impossible to defeat us. At this time, the black-armored man's voice sounded out once more. Yang Tian turned around and saw an ordinary-looking middle-aged man who had taken off his helmet. After throwing his helmet to the ground, the black-armored man leaned on his saber and sat down, his eyes filled with exhaustion. Although his opponent had suddenly become weak, Yang Tian didn't approach. He stood where he was and asked, "Where is this place?" The black-armored man had said that as long as he defeated them, he would know the answer. "This is Megapole Palace." The black-armored man looked up at Yang Tian and then lowered his head. He slowly said, "We are the guards of this first palace. You came here to obtain the Megapole Monarch's Megapole Talisman, right? It's been who knows how many years since those people came here last time. The Megapole Monarch had been incomparably powerful when he was alive, and his methods were ruthless. The entire Starry Sea and even those fellows from the realm of the gods feared him. However, no matter how powerful a being was, there would still be a time when they would decline and die. Even the mighty megapole monarch couldn't avoid this fate. The black-armored man lowered his head and slowly described a powerhouse who wasn't inferior to the giant god. That powerhouse was the megapole monarch. The giant god's strength was displayed through his tyrannical fighting strength. As for the megapole monarch, Yang Tian's impression of him was that he was a master of the Tao of talismans. He was skilled in scheming, and his methods were ruthless. It was likely that when the megapole monarch was at his peak, his enemies would rather face a powerhouse with unparalleled fighting strength like the giant god than face his schemes. That island outside in the Nine Cauldron sacrifice, what's going on? Yang Tian asked after the burly man in black armor spoke. The black-armored man was silent for a moment before he said, "The extreme monarch wanted to be reborn through the Nine Cauldrons' sacrificial rite. For this, he didn't hesitate to invade the dragon realm and capture over 9,000 divine dragons to sacrifice. Unfortunately, even though he's always been a meticulous schemer and has never miscalculated, he failed at his final calculation." The black-armored man paused momentarily before continuing. The island owned by the Extreme Monarch was named Extreme Monarch Island after him. It's extremely vast, and it's not much smaller than the island you humans live on. Zhao Ji King was in a hurry to capture the dragon tribe, thinking that the dragon tribe couldn't do anything to him. He didn't expect that compared to the mysterious dragon tribe, his power was like a wisp of air in the air. Before the ritual was completed, a gigantic dragon claw descended from the skies above the Great Providence Island. With a single swipe, the Great Providence Island was smashed into smithereens. The island we're on now is only a tiny piece of it. The Divine Dragon Tribe is just too powerful. From the beginning to the end, the survivors on the Great Providence Island didn't even see the body of the Divine Dragon. They only saw a gigantic dragon claw. Although I didn't see it with my own eyes, I can imagine how huge that mysterious dragon was and how powerful it was. The Nine Cauldron sacrificial rite was interrupted and couldn't continue. The Extreme Monarch could only hide in this isolated space and slowly wait for death until the last trace of his spirit body dissipated. As the black-armored man spoke, when the little azure dragon heard that the Infinity Monarch had captured more than 9,000 of its kind and sacrificed them, it recalled the dragon bones it had seen in the cauldron, and it couldn't help but be enraged. However, when it heard that the Extreme Monarch Island built by the Extreme Monarch had been smashed into smithereens by a gigantic dragon claw, the little blue dragon couldn't help but become excited. Smashing an entire continent with a single claw, how powerful would that be? It wasn't just the little blue dragon. This made Yang Tian realize that there was still a long way to go before he could become the strongest person in this world. After the black-armored man finished speaking, Yang Tian became silent. After a long while, Yang Tian asked, "What's with the yellow fog outside?" When Yang Tian asked this question, the black-armored man smiled and said, "Although the Extreme Monarch has perished, he left behind an extremely powerful talisman. That's the Extreme Monarch Talisman. The Extreme Monarch Talisman was the Extreme Monarch's proudest creation when he was alive. During normal cultivation, one could constantly inject energy into it. No matter how much energy was injected, it could store as much energy. At critical moments, the energy could be split into one or several bursts to attack the opponent. For the Extreme Monarch Talisman, the strong people in the Star Sea have been constantly searching for it. In order to prevent outsiders from harassing them, the Extreme Monarch's daughter, Gu Ling, used the 9 cauldrons to create a powerful talisman array. Any living being that comes here will be trapped. Even if they reach this place in the end, they will have to pass through the first 4 palaces to obtain the Extreme Monarch Talisman. Gu Ling, is there anyone else here? The black-armored man asked. Yang Tian raised his head to look at the palace in front of him and asked with a frown. The black-armored man shook his head. Gu Ling left a long time ago. Although this place is safe and big enough, what's the point of living here for a long time? Then the question was, if Gu Ling had left, why didn't she take the powerful Extreme Monarch Talisman with her? The black-armored man seemed to know what Yang Tian was thinking and said, "The Extreme Monarch Talisman is still here. Otherwise, there wouldn't be that yellow fog outside. That yellow fog was produced by the extreme monarch talisman. Although Guling was as ruthless and emotionless as her father, she didn't want anyone to destroy the body her father left behind. How do you know so much? Yang Tian asked again. The black-armored man said, I used to be Gu Ling's mount, so of course I know all this. You guys are quite pitiful. Yang Tian looked at the black-armored man and shook his head. Yang Tian said this from the bottom of his heart. If he was trapped here, he might have gone crazy long ago. The black-armored man only snorted and said, We're not the only guards here. You'll encounter more powerful opponents. If you want to break the talisman formation outside, you'll have to obtain the Extreme Monarch Talisman. Although the Extreme Monarch Island is destroyed, this island is still protected by the talisman formation left behind by the Extreme Monarch. With the Extreme Monarch Talisman, you can turn this island into a beautiful and livable island. After saying that, the black-armored man stood up and waved his hand at his companions who were still alive. Then, something that made Yang Tian sad happened. Those who were still alive carried the bodies of their companions and jumped straight into the cave that the black-armored man had opened up. Then, a series of painful groans came from inside. The black-armored man looked at Yang Tian one last time and walked towards the entrance of the cave. Obviously, he would also jump in and become Kala's food. Yang Tian felt very sad and raised his hand to stop the black-armored man. You don't have to do this. Before Yang Tian could finish, the black-armored man said, We've actually died long ago. Our bodies are the same as his. The black-armored man pointed at the little blue dragon on Yang Tian's shoulder. After saying that, he smiled at the little blue dragon. In that instant, the little blue dragon was stunned. You can remember my name. My name is Mier. After saying that, the black-armored man pushed Yang Tian's arm away and jumped into the hole. No, Yang Tian was also stunned. By the time he reacted, it was already too late. He could only shout into the pitch-black hole. Then, Yang Tian shouted, Mier, where is the dragon field? You still haven't told me. Mier didn't answer Yang Tian. In the pitch-black hole, a series of groans could be heard, as if someone was trying their best to endure the pain. After a few minutes, only the sounds of animals crawling could be heard. Their blood doesn't have the smell of blood, and there's only a trace of their spiritual bodies. Xiaolong, they're dragons just like you. After a long time, Yang Tian sighed and said indifferently. The little blue dragon silently walked to the edge of the hole and spat out golden dragon flames into the pitch-black hole. In the hole, a series of Kala's screams could be heard. Only when there were no more sounds coming from inside did the little blue dragon stop. The black-armored man was Mier. At this moment, Yang Tian thought of him and felt that the change was too great. It was as if he had become a completely different person. It's very simple. At this moment, the strange program said, in their bodies there's a type of life talisman array. This array is formed by a unique energy, just like the yellow fog outside. When Mier and the others were defeated, they lost their value. The sealed memories will slowly awaken. After the strange program finished speaking, Yang Tian sighed and looked at the little blue dragon. He said, the dragon race is a proud race. If they didn't use this method, how could they be willing to be enslaved and controlled? Also, as Mier said, they're already dead. Their spiritual bodies aren't complete, and their physical bodies are like numb machines. When the array in their bodies controls them, it allows them to continue living in this way. Roar! After Yang Tian finished speaking, the little blue dragon let out an angry and sorrowful roar at the palace in front of him. After the little blue dragon had calmed down, Yang Tian picked up his sword and walked up the stone steps toward the palace in front of him. The palace was made of stone, and it was also built with hard yellow stones. From the outside, it looked like it was being bathed in sunlight, and it gave Yang Tian a warm feeling. But once he entered through the door, it was dark and damp. Boom! After just a few steps, a large stone fell from the top of the door, turning the palace into a dark space. As soon as the stone door fell, a woman's giggling could be heard in the dark space. In the dark space, the sound was like the laughter of a female ghost, and it added a terrifying aura to the darkness. Whoosh, Yang Tian raised his left hand and shot out 15. It turned into a red light and pierced toward the direction of the laughter. Chapter 839. Yang Tian's blade came out, and the laughter stopped abruptly. At this moment, the little blue dragon spat out a golden sphere that emitted golden light. This was not the little blue dragon's Dragon Ball, but condensed dragon flames. In this darkness, this dragon flame was like a sun that suddenly appeared, and the space in the hall suddenly became bright. What appeared in Yang Tian's eyes were black, moist stone pillars. On the ground in the hall, there was a layer of shallow water, about a foot deep, and flat stone slabs could be seen in the water. Since entering the Sea of Stars, this was the first time Yang Tian had seen so much water. Yang Tian turned around and looked behind him. As he expected, the stone door behind him disappeared. As soon as the stone door fell, the spatial rune array in the hall was activated, forming a sealed space. Looking at the top of the hall, he could not see the end under the golden light. Whoosh! Suddenly, a whistling sound rang out. Yang Tian raised his hand, and 15, who had just been shot out by him, flew back. 15 did not catch any target. The dragon flame spat out by the little blue dragon burned continuously in the air and only lasted for less than a minute before it was extinguished. This kind of dragon flame would not consume a lot of its energy. After one was extinguished, the little blue dragon spat out another one. It was the nature of most creatures to yearn for light. Even if they did not need light, Yang Tian and the little blue dragon could still move forward normally with their mental strength. However, with the existence of the golden light, they would feel more comfortable in this environment. Yang Tian stopped at the same spot for a moment to get a clear view of his surroundings before he walked forward. At this time, Yang Tian was wearing the giant god armor and was 10 meters tall. He was holding a giant blue saber in his hand. As he walked, he looked like a demon god in the darkness. As he walked, the water on the ground was stirred up, making a series of hua-hua sounds. The stone pillars in the hall were 3 meters in diameter and about 20 meters apart from each other. As Yang Tian walked, the stone pillars continued to appear, as if there was no end to them, making Yang Tian feel as if he was in a forest of stone pillars. A few minutes later, a burst of laughter rang out again. This voice sounded like it came from a young woman. It sounded extremely demonic. Yang Tian raised his left hand and wanted to shoot 15 in the direction of the sound, but he suddenly dismissed the idea. There were many stone pillars in the hall that constantly reflected sound. 15 was able to track the sound to find the target, but when 15 appeared, the sound stopped. This left 15 with no choice but to turn back. The reason Yang Tian used 15 was because when he entered the hall, the soul-severing blade in Yang Tian's hand trembled a few times. It told Yang Tian that there was a powerful spirit here. The source of the laughter was clearly the powerful spirit body. The hall was dark and damp. It was an environment that was suitable for spirit bodies to live in. Yang Tian didn't send out 15 again, and the spirit didn't feel threatened. It kept laughing. Although there were many stone pillars in this space, and the sound was constantly reflected, Yang Tian still walked in the direction of the sound. More than 10 minutes later, a faint light finally appeared in front of him. As he walked forward, the stone pillars disappeared and a sealed door appeared. This door was different from the one Yang Tian came from. It was likely the door to the back of the hall. Suddenly, a clear voice sounded above Yang Tian's head again. Yang Tian looked up and saw 2 intertwined lights, one green and one white, descend from the top of the hall. The laughter came from these 2 rays of light. The green and white lights gently landed on the ground. Soon after, they separated and transformed into 2 women that were as tall as Yang Tian. They were 2 very beautiful young women. One was dressed in green and the other in white. Their clothes were similar to the women of ancient India. After these 2 women appeared, more lights appeared and transformed into beautiful women. Moments later, there were more than 100 stunning beauties standing in front of Yang Tian. There were all kinds of beauties, Although they were spiritual bodies, they were very different from the spiritual bodies Yang Tian had seen before. Most of the spiritual bodies Yang Tian had seen before were translucent. At a glance, one could tell that they were spiritual bodies. The word ghost appeared in Yang Tian's mind. And now, although these women were spiritual bodies, they looked no different from living humans. 15, who was in Yang Tian's left and right hand, started to tremble in excitement when these women appeared. He could not wait to devour all of these spirits. But Yang Tian held 15 tightly and didn't let it move. These women didn't give him a sense of danger. In other words, these women weren't hostile to him. Who are you? Yang Tian glanced at these women and asked indifferently. As soon as he said that, the crowd in front of him parted. An extremely mature and charming woman walked out. She looked like the leader of these women and was also the oldest. The mature woman bowed to Yang Tian and said, "We were the women of the Zhaoji king when we were alive. You can call us Wanji. We've been trapped for a long time. I hope you can destroy this hall and let us go. If you agree, I'll tell you where the exit of this hall is." When the woman spoke, she spoke very quickly and with a slight inflection. Yang Tian took a long time to understand what she meant. "That simple?" Yang Tian smiled. The woman said, "Of course it's not that simple. If you didn't have that saber in your hand, you would have been swallowed by us long ago. Since we can't defeat you, we can only let you go. We can live here forever, but in fact this is a kind of imprisonment. It's better to die. Destroy this hall, and all of you will disappear, completely disappear." Yang Tian added. The woman said, "Even if we disappear, it's better than being trapped here forever." As she said that, she couldn't help but glance at Yang Tian's left hand. Her eyes were filled with fear. In fact, what she wanted to say was that even if they disappeared, it was better than being swallowed by Yang Tian's saber. If they were pulled into the saber's world, it would be 1,000 times, no, 10,000 times more painful than being trapped here forever. After the woman finished speaking, Yang Tian didn't speak for a moment. Seeing Yang Tian remain silent, she started to get anxious. She was afraid that Yang Tian would use her to feed his saber. After the hall was sealed, it had formed a special space that allowed them to temporarily escape danger. However, they could only escape for a moment, but they could not escape forever. Therefore, she said, "If you agree, we can let you enjoy the greatest pleasure as a male life form." With that, she took off her clothes, revealing her beautiful body. At this moment, the other women spread out and surrounded Yang Tian. They danced seductively. They either flew in the air or crawled on the ground, twisting their bodies like snakes. Under the situation, the blue saber in Yang Tian's right hand gradually lowered. At this moment, the eyes of the woman who spoke to Yang Tian flashed. She twisted her body and put on an extremely seductive posture while slowly approaching Yang Tian. Chapter 840. More than 100 beautiful women surrounded Yang Tian and formed this beauty array. In this strange environment, it undoubtedly magnified the desires of male creatures. Seeing the blue giant sword in Yang Tian's hand gradually sink, the woman who was talking to Yang Tian thought that Yang Tian had been bewitched and his mind was starting to slacken. She took the opportunity to slowly approach Yang Tian. She was very confident in such a situation. This was because when the Megapole King was still alive, he had fallen under such a beauty array countless times. However, when she was less than 3 meters away from Yang Tian, a red light suddenly appeared in her eyes. Immediately, an extremely terrifying aura enveloped her. Spirit bodies were different from physical bodies in that they could transform at any time. They were unpredictable and extremely fast. Logically speaking, she should be able to avoid this red light. However, the terrifying aura emitted by the red light made her feel a sense of powerlessness that she had never felt before. This completely naked woman finally couldn't control herself. She screamed and quickly retreated. However, the red light stuck to her forehead and followed her closely. When she stopped against the stone door behind her, she saw that red knife 15 in Yang Tian's hand was pressing against her forehead, making a buzzing sound. The surrounding women had already scattered and escaped into the darkness where the golden light couldn't reach. Yang Tian didn't move. During the process of releasing the knife, 15 was controlled by his mind power. At this moment, he controlled 15 so that the tip of the knife was pressed against the beautiful woman's forehead. At this moment, as long as Yang Tian moved his mind, 15 would be able to wrap this woman into the knife and create another powerful spirit body in the world of the knife. Don't misunderstand. I'm only approaching you to give you bliss. The woman couldn't see Yang Tian's face under the mask. Seeing that Yang Tian didn't destroy her, the fear in her heart lessened, and she hurriedly explained herself. I really don't feel your killing intent. However, I don't want strange women to get close to my body. After Yang Tian finished speaking, he recalled 15 with his mental power. The woman let out a sigh of relief when she saw Yang Tian put his blade away. She conjured clothes to cover her private parts before helplessly shaking her head. Actually, we're much weaker now. Otherwise, you would definitely be able to enjoy the pleasure that only the Zhaji monarch once enjoyed. But Yang Tian said with a smile, "Come on. If I was really bewitched by you, it would be strange if I didn't fall under your control. At that time, you can use my body to leave this place. With your powerful spirit bodies, you can seize the body of a living being and survive for a long time." After Yang Tian finished speaking, he didn't wait for the woman to deny it and continued. "I want to know if there are any living creatures here." "No more." The woman shook her head and said, "A long, long time ago, there were no longer any living creatures in this place. The only ones left are spirits like us and half-dead creatures that have been placed with talismans." Clearly, the half-dead creatures that the woman was talking about were Mill's group outside. "What else is in the other 4 palaces?" Yang Tian asked again. The woman said, "Nothing can stand the test of time. If you had come earlier, you wouldn't even have been able to enter this ethereal palace." After she finished speaking, she pointed at the stone pillar on her right and said, "If you are strong enough, you can break this stone pillar and this palace will be destroyed." With that, the woman flashed and disappeared from Yang Tian's sight. After the woman disappeared, Yang Tian came to the stone pillar that the woman had mentioned. Under the golden light of the dragon flame, this stone pillar was nothing special compared to the other stone pillars in the palace. Yang Tian gave it some thought, then slowly raised his blue blade and slashed at the stone pillar. Yang Tian did not use his full strength for this slash. Pong! It was a loud sound. Before the blade even made contact with the stone pillar, it had already triggered the talisman array on it. A terrifying force burst out from the stone pillar. Yang Tian did not expect the rebounding force to be so strong that he was sent flying with his blade. His huge body crashed through 3 stone pillars before stopping. When Yang Tian stood up from the ground, he saw that the 3 stone pillars that he had crashed through had been repaired. "That woman is too vicious." Yang Tian sighed and then walked to the stone pillar that he had slashed. When a stone pillar was destroyed, it would release a powerful rebounding force. That woman clearly knew about it, but she did not explain it to Yang Tian. Clearly, she wanted to teach Yang Tian a lesson. If he had used his full strength for that slash, the rebounding force would have been even greater. Even if he was wearing the giant god armor, he would have been injured. However, this slash also let Yang Tian know that what the woman said about the way to destroy this palace was right. This stone pillar was the key to breaking this space. Since he could not use too much strength with this slash, he would use a few more slashes. Yang Tian looked at the stone pillar in front of him. After a moment of silence, he thought of a way. The spiritual bodies of the concubines were not far away at this time. They were hiding in the darkness, silently watching Yang Tian. At this moment, the expressions on their faces were complicated. From the expressions on their faces, it seemed that some of them were terrified of death, some of them were happy that they were about to be released, and some of them were at a loss about their fate. Regardless of whether they were alive or dead, their fates were not in their control. Pong! In the eyes of the women, Yang Tian slashed the stone pillar again. For the second slash, Yang Tian only used 30% of his strength. The stone pillar still erupted with a rebounding force, but compared to the previous force, it was much weaker. Yang Tian was already prepared. Under the impact of this force, he did not move at all. The impact on his body had not dissipated yet. Immediately after, Yang Tian slashed a second time. Pung! There was another loud noise. Yang Tian, who was sensitive to power, finally noticed the difference in this third slash. The runes on the stone pillar, in order to produce a rebounding force, needed to borrow the power of the entire talisman array, and the transfer of power required a transmission process. When the impact of the third slash disappeared from his body, Yang Tian let out a long breath. Next, Yang Tian looked at the stone pillar in front of him and fell silent again. It was not until more than 10 minutes later that he moved again. Yang Tian suddenly raised his saber and slashed the stone pillar. Compared to the power of the previous 3 slashes, this slash was much weaker. However, after a loud bang, the indestructible stone pillar suddenly emitted a series of cracking sounds. Then, the entire hall became bright. This was because everything that made up the hall was gradually becoming transparent. After the entire hall disappeared, there was a red scroll lying at Yang Tian's feet. It was half opened, revealing a dense array of runes. When Yang Tian picked up the red scroll from the ground, he seemed to hear a woman's voice coming from it. This is the charm of beauty. The voice of a strange program rang out in Yang Tian's mind. This is the treasure of runes that the Zhaoji Emperor used to keep women. Chapter 841. A Beauty Talisman. This is quite interesting. Yang Tian smiled as he mumbled to himself and slowly unrolled the talisman. Yang Tian did not recognize the runes on it, but as he read them line by line, images of beautiful women appeared in his mind. The runes on the talisman were arranged in a strange way. The rune energy produced could show the images recorded on the talisman in the viewer's mind. After the strange program finished reading all the runes on the talisman, it said to Yang Tian, "Use energy to activate it, and you can create an illusory world with the same senses as the real world. Beautiful women like jade, like the world of fairies." The scene that the strange program described to Yang Tian was an extremely beautiful scene for men. Yang Tian smiled and said, "Zhaoji Wang, you really know how to enjoy life. It's a pity that everything is illusory. Indulging in it will inevitably weaken one's will." With that, Yang Tian was about to put the talisman into his storage bracelet. Yang Tian did not use the talisman for himself, but it did not mean that it was useless. If he met a powerhouse who was addicted to this path in the future, it might be useful. Wait. Seeing that Yang Tian was about to close the talisman, the strange program suddenly said, "What is it?" Yang Tian asked. The program said, "There seems to be something on the back of the talisman." Yang Tian opened the talisman again and turned it over. The back was yellowish-white with many fine red lines. If one did not look carefully, it would not be easy to notice. Yang Tian looked at it again and again, but he did not find anything special about the fine red lines. After some thought, he attached a trace of his mental power to it. By using his mental power, Yang Tian could see even finer things. When Yang Tian's mental power landed on it, a mountain river diagram appeared in Yang Tian's mind. It was a vast land with a large river in the middle. It stretched from one end of the diagram to the other. Its source was unknown, and no one knew where it ended up. On both sides of the river were vast plains with green grasslands and forests. After the plains, there were continuous mountains. After the mountains was the end of the map, which was surrounded by clouds. The whole picture was full of life, but Yang Tian did not see any animals. Where is this? After withdrawing his mental power from the map, Yang Tian pondered and felt that such a beautiful environment definitely did not exist in the world that he was previously in, so he could not help but wonder. The strange program spoke. "This map isn't complete, it seems to only be a part of it. If there really is such a place in Galaxy, then it would be a good place." Yang Tian nodded. The environment on the map was much better than the environment on Earth. Yang Tian was about to put the charm of beauty back into his storage bracelet when the little blue dragon opened its mouth and sucked the charm into its mouth. After the little blue dragon put away the charm, it explained to Yang Tian it seems to be familiar with the situation on the map. It put it in its storage bracelet so that it can take it out at any time. Could this be the area in the Sea of Stars where the Dragon Clan lived? Thinking about how the Zhaoji Emperor had once gone to the dragon's territory in Galaxy and captured thousands of dragons, Yang Tian suddenly felt that his guess might be accurate. However, this map was not complete. If he had a complete map, he might be able to use it to find galaxy dragons. Originally, Yang Tian had come here to break the huge rune formation. He did not expect to find clues about the galaxy dragons after coming here. At this moment, Yang Tian hoped that the Zhaoji Emperor was still alive. Powerful enemies were not scary, but the unknown was the most torturous. The first palace was called the Empty Spirit Palace, probably because spirits lived in it. As for the second palace, there was a rune engraved on a tablet next to the door. The second palace was called the Release Blade Palace. Release Blade Palace? Release Blade? Yang Tian listened to the strange program's explanation of the runes and smiled. He carried the huge blue saber and walked into the palace. As soon as he entered, Yang Tian saw 9 huge yellow weapon racks. The materials used to make the weapon racks looked the same as the yellow bricks in the outside world. Huge weapons were placed on the 3 weapon racks after they entered the door. On the first weapon rack was a huge bone hammer. It was greenish-black and looked like the leg bone of a huge beast. It was 15 meters long and looked extremely heavy. When Yang Tian saw this weapon, he felt that it should be a weapon used by a beast race elite. Yang Tian carried his saber and slowly walked past this weapon rack. Nothing out of the ordinary happened. Then, a second weapon rack appeared in front of him. On the second weapon rack, there was a huge, soft whip. This weapon was clearly meticulously made. The thick red whip handle was covered with protruding runes. These runes not only formed a glyph array, but also had the function of anti-slip. The whip body was tied with a black chain. Each chain was made of thin, circular pieces that were fastened together. There were also runes protruding from the surface of each of these black flakes. Seeing this soft whip, Yang Tian could not help but think of Soli. Soli's soft whip was very similar to this huge soft whip. On the third weapon rack was a huge red axe. The huge axe was 10 meters long and looked very rough. It looked like it was carved out of red rock. There were no runes on it. Although this weapon looked heavy, at the same time, it also gave people the illusion that it was easy to destroy. After seeing the first 2 weapons, Yang Tian certainly did not think that this huge axe was really carved out of ordinary red rock. Otherwise, it would be better to fight barehanded. There was no need for it to be placed here. There were a total of 9 weapon racks in the palace. 6 of them were empty. Yang Tian walked past the weapon rack where the huge axe was placed and came to the 4th weapon rack. Unsheathing Palace. Yang Tian now understood that if he wanted to pass through this place, he had to take off his weapon and place it on the weapon rack. Only then could he pass through. However, the weapons on the first 3 weapon racks had not been taken away. This had already told Yang Tian that if he left the weapons behind, it might not be so easy to take them away. Yang Tian took a look at the 4th weapon rack and walked towards it. Something strange finally happened. When Yang Tian walked past the 4th weapon rack, his vision blurred. What appeared in front of him was still the 4th weapon rack. It's spatial energy. At this time, the strange program said it's a kind of displacement mechanism. No matter how many times you walk through it, it can always teleport you back. Yang Tian smiled and said, "So, every time I walk through it, it will teleport me back?" The strange program said, "Yes, this is the wonder of spatial displacement. It's not just that here. If you walk through it many times, it will accumulate spatial energy. When it reaches a certain level, it will cause spatial annihilation in a small area." Yang Tian said, "That's too troublesome. Wouldn't it be better to just use spatial annihilation?" The strange program did not respond to Yang Tian's words. This was because Yang Tian understood that this was probably a test designed by the Megapole Monarch. It could also be said that he was deliberately mystifying things. There will be more tomorrow. Chapter 842. 5,000 Words. Can this kind of talisman array be cracked? Looking at the tall weapon rack in front of him, he frowned and asked. He did not want to waste too much time here. As time passed, the Beastmasters would definitely become more and more anxious. The strange program did not answer Yang Tian immediately. Instead, after a few minutes of calculation, it said, "With the information I have now, it is impossible to crack this kind of talisman array. However, it should be possible to find its loophole." After the strange program finished speaking, it began to calculate again. This was actually good news for Yang Tian, because the strange program was finally not as helpless as before when it came to talisman arrays constructed from ancient runes. During the process of the strange program's calculation, strange halos appeared in Yang Tian's mind. These were the simulated images that the strange program displayed during the process of calculation. After countless collaborations, Yang Tian's understanding of runes had improved greatly. Although these halos looked very mysterious, Yang Tian could understand the meaning behind them. After a few minutes, Yang Tian threw the blue saber in his hand, and it landed on the fourth weapon rack. Immediately, Yang Tian slapped the weapon rack with his palm. With a loud bang, the fourth weapon rack was smashed into pieces. Amidst the sputtering yellow gravel, Yang Tian grabbed the handle of the blue saber and slashed at the fifth weapon rack. A powerful saber aura was emitted from the blue saber, and it whistled through the air. The invisible and domineering saber aura smashed through the remaining 5 weapon racks, turning them into piles of gravel. The talisman arrays on the 9 weapon racks were won. After 6 of them were broken, the remaining 3 weapon racks suddenly emitted bursts of creaking sounds. The weapons placed on the 3 weapon racks were actually very heavy, especially the redstone axe. Although it did not look impressive, it was the heaviest. With a bang, the weapon rack on which it was placed was smashed into pieces. Immediately after, the weapon rack on which the whip and bone hammer were placed was also shattered. The entire unsheathing palace also changed. After the talisman array was destroyed by Yang Tian, the entire palace slowly disappeared, just like the previous ethereal palace. In the end, only a vast platform was left. This palace was also formed by a talisman array. Yang Tian glanced around, and then his gaze landed on the huge stone axe. The red stone axe was stuck in the yellow gravel. After the entire palace disappeared, a crack appeared on its surface. It looked like it could break at any time. Could it be that this stone axe was really carved from a piece of red rock? With doubts, Yang Tian walked in front of the stone axe and touched it with the blue saber. Bang! Suddenly, the stone axe exploded, emitting a strong red light. Yang Tian instinctively. After the red light disappeared, a bright red giant axe appeared in front of Yang Tian. Compared to its original size, the entire axe had shrunk by half. Its whole body was bright, as if it was carved from a large piece of ruby. The handle and the body of the axe were covered with dense runes, as well as some mysterious patterns. At the same time, a sharp aura was being emitted from the huge red axe. It gave off the feeling that if one were to hold it, they would be able to chop through everything. Yang Tian looked at the red giant axe, bent down, and grabbed the handle, wanting to lift it out of the gravel. This giant axe was really heavy. Yang Tian held it with one hand, and it felt like he was pulling up a mountain. The moment Yang Tian grabbed the handle of the axe, a strong spiritual body entered his body, wanting to enter his mind. With his previous experience, Yang Tian was already prepared. Powerhouses did not want to die easily. In the moment before they died, their strong resentment could allow a part of their spiritual body to remain in their bones or in objects that they had once used. These things weak creatures could not touch. Once controlled by this spiritual body, they would be affected by the spiritual body and become delirious. In the worst case, the spiritual body would be completely devoured and completely die. Before this remnant of the spiritual body could enter Yang Tian's mind, it was blocked by the energy released by 15. It wrapped around the spiritual body and pulled it into the saber. The whole process was not sloppy. If it were not for the existence of 15, this strange weapon, Yang Tian would not have dared to touch the things left behind by these powerhouses. Strangely, after the spiritual body in the axe was swallowed by 15, the giant axe in Yang Tian's hand suddenly became many times lighter. It was easily lifted out of the gravel by Yang Tian. At the same time, the color of the giant axe had an obvious change. Compared to before, it became much dimmer. Yang Tian looked at the giant axe. Suddenly, his heart moved, and he began to pour energy into the giant axe. With the replenishment of energy, the color of the giant axe finally began to slowly recover. In the end, it became a blood-red color. In the end, it even released a blood-red light. Holding this giant blood-red axe, Yang Tian was also enveloped by the red light. It made him look like a demon god that had walked out of hell. The talisman array on a spiritual weapon could also affect the mind of the user. At this time, Yang Tian had an impulse to destroy everything in front of him. Although this was the case, Yang Tian became more and more interested in this kind of weapon. With strong determination, he engraved the violent impulse and continued to pour energy into the giant axe. After a while, when Yang Tian could no longer endure it and was not willing to endure it anymore, he threw away the giant blue sword and held the axe with both hands. He slashed at the third palace that was higher in front of him. It was about 1,000 meters away. Yang Tian was not clear about the power of this axe. Because his emotions were affected, he wished that this axe could split the palace in front of him. A blood-red light was emitted from the axe. After leaving the axe, it formed the shape of a cross and rushed toward the palace in front of him that he still did not know the name of. As the cross flew, it became bigger and bigger. Boom! This huge cross quickly hit the palace in front of him and smashed it into pieces. The palace in front of him was also formed by the energy of the runes. After it was smashed, there was a fluctuation in the space, and it quickly returned to its original state. Yang Tian was not surprised by this situation. The energy from the giant axe only interrupted the illusory energy that formed the palace for a moment. It did not really destroy the talisman array that formed the illusion. After using the giant axe once, Yang Tian had a basic understanding of it. Although this weapon was extraordinary, there was still a gap between it and the giant god's blue sword. Although its destructive power was strong, the amount of energy that could be stored in the axe could not be compared to the blue saber. In other words, even if Yang Tian used all his strength, the power that he could unleash would only be slightly stronger than the previous attack. The energy that the giant god's blue sword could hold was something that Yang Tian could not estimate. After the strange program read the runes on the axe, it could not find the name of the giant axe. Yang Tian casually named it Blood Axe, and then threw it into his storage bracelet. Yang Tian's weapon of choice was a sword. He put away this weapon and planned to give it to his friends to use in the future. There were also two other weapons, the whip and the bone mace. Yang Tian was not even interested in testing the power of these two weapons. After erasing the remnant souls within them, he kept them into his storage bracelet as well. The key to unsheathing Hall's talisman array was the weapon rack. Since the weapon rack was destroyed, the talisman array could no longer operate. After putting away the three weapons, Yang Tian did not immediately go to the third palace. Instead, he rummaged through the ruins of Unsheathing Hall for a while. In the end, it was the little blue dragon's sharp eyes that found an inconspicuous yellow scroll under a piece of rubble and handed it to Yang Tian. There were also many runes on the scroll. The strange program translated it to Yang Tian as a weapon talisman scroll. There were not many runes on it, but it described many strange weapons. Unfortunately, it was only an introduction. There were no combat techniques for using various weapons on it, nor were there any ways to crack them. This time, without the strange program's reminder, Yang Tian flipped the talisman over. Similarly, on the back, there was also a mountain river diagram. After the strange program's calculations, this diagram and a mountain river diagram on the back of the beauty talisman could be combined. Moreover, with this diagram, the strange program calculated that a complete diagram should be divided into 5 parts. Yang Tian could not help but wonder if the 5 palaces here were formed by the talisman arrays on the 5 scrolls. On each scroll, there was a mountain-river diagram. Filled with curiosity, Yang Tian went to the third palace. The 5 palaces, each larger than the previous one, were also higher in height. After the strange program translated the third palace, Yang Tian called it the body-preserving palace. The body here was not the body of a living person, but the body of a corpse. In the palace, there were thousands of corpses. Their upper bodies were tied with red ropes made of an unknown material, and they were suspended in the air. The stele outside the palace stated that those who were qualified to be placed in the body-preserving palace after death were the subordinates of the Zhaoji monarch. The Zhaoji monarch island was destroyed, and so were countless subordinates of the Zhaoji monarch. The Zhaoji monarch was once one of the most powerful creatures in the universe. Naturally, the combat power of his subordinates was also very strong. These corpses, no matter what race they were all in human form, big and small. The big ones were more than 10 meters tall, and the small ones were about the size of an ordinary person. The corpses placed in the body-preserving palace were surrounded by special talisman arrays, and their bodies were still as fresh as when they died. At the same time, these corpses still retained the expression they had when they died. After entering the palace, an air current surged out of nowhere, and the corpses in the palace started to sway. The angle at which the corpses were suspended was also specially designed, with their faces facing downwards. As the thousands of corpses swayed, Yang Tian saw thousands of faces filled with anger, fear, and even pain that were completely distorted. If an ordinary person came here and saw this scene, they would probably be scared to death. As for Yang Tian, he only felt extremely uncomfortable. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps after entering the palace, Yang Tian slowly walked toward the door at the back of the palace. As he walked, the corpses that were suspended in the palace began to descend bit by bit. Just as Yang Tian reached the center of the palace, a corpse's feet touched the ground, and this corpse was less than 10 meters behind Yang Tian. At this time, Yang Tian stopped. This was the corpse of a woman, and she was 5 meters tall. To an ordinary person, she would be considered a giant. The woman's appearance was not bad. Her face looked like a Western woman from Earth. She wore a black, tight-fitting outfit that revealed her curves. As soon as her feet touched the ground, the red rope that was suspending the corpse loosened. Then, something strange happened. The rope loosened, but the corpse was still standing. It looked like she had suddenly come back to life. However, this corpse did not give off any signs of life. The little blue dragon was holding a leaf from the tree of world and eating it. When he saw this scene, his eyes were filled with dissatisfaction, and he opened his mouth and spat out a stream of dragon flames. Boom! The golden dragon flames instantly enveloped the female corpse. This time, the little blue dragon's dragon flames had finally come into play. The corpse that was enveloped by the dragon flames let out a sizzling sound, and at the same time, black smoke began to rise. After a few blinks of an eye, when the dragon flames were extinguished, the female corpse had already been burned into black residue. However, there was an additional cloud of black smoke that was condensed in the air. There was an air current in the palace that could blow the corpse away. Normal smoke and dust would be blown away. But this cloud of black smoke, although it remained where it was, showed no signs of dissipating. Yang Tian suddenly turned around, and a red light shot out from his hand. 15 easily passed through the black smoke, circled in the air, and returned to Yang Tian's hand. This strange cloud of black smoke was not a spiritual body. 15 could not make it dissipate. Xiaolong, this looks like death miasma. Yang Tian looked at the cloud of black smoke and said calmly. As soon as Yang Tian opened his mouth to speak, the cloud of black smoke suddenly floated toward Yang Tian. The little blue dragon stuffed half of the Tree of Worlds leaf into its mouth and then spat it out. This time, the little blue dragon did not spit out golden dragon flames, but a cloud of green smoke. As soon as the black smoke came into contact with the green smoke that the little blue dragon spat out, they instantly merged into one and disappeared. Xiaolong, well done. Seeing that the black smoke had disappeared, Yang Tian smiled and praised the little blue dragon. Yang Tian had not thought of using the Tree of Worlds leaf to break the death miasma. The death miasma represented death. It was a special kind of energy, while the Tree of World was full of life and had a powerful life force. This powerful life force could naturally break the death miasma. The death miasma here was clearly different from the death miasma that Yang Tian had seen in the natural talisman array space. This was probably also the Zhaoji monarch's masterpiece. What Yang Tian did not know was that this death miasma was very strange. Once it came into contact with the physical body of a living being, it would disappear. It was as if this death miasma did not have any harmful power. However, in reality, it had silently merged into the spiritual body, causing the spiritual body's lifespan to greatly decrease. There was another thing that Yang Tian did not know, and that was that these corpses could not be destroyed so easily. A female corpse fell to the ground, followed by more behind. When Yang Tian stepped into the palace and activated the talisman mechanism, all the corpses that were hanging here were put down. When the death miasma dissipated, there were already countless corpses standing around Yang Tian. These corpses stood there quietly. The corpses that had their eyes closed suddenly opened their eyes and stared at Yang Tian. While he was not afraid of these corpses, Yang Tian felt uncomfortable being stared at by so many corpses. Looking at the door to the back of the palace, Yang Tian took a step forward. At the same time that Yang Tian took a step forward, the corpses also took a step forward. Their steps were very stiff. Yang Tian raised his sword and slashed. An invisible sword chi shot out from the blue sword and slashed at a corpse in front of him. With a series of the sword chi pierced through the corpse and only stopped when it hit the wall. Strangely, after being hit by the sword chi, these corpses were not affected at all. This was something that Yang Tian could not understand. Logically speaking, these corpses should have been blown to pieces by the sword chi, unless they could absorb the destructive power of the sword chi. Next, Yang Tian slashed a few more times. The result was the same as the first slash. Moreover, in the process of slashing, these corpses took another step forward and approached Yang Tian. "I've really encountered a ghost." Yang Tian smiled bitterly and said to himself. He took a few steps forward and slashed at a male corpse that was 3 meters tall. Yang Tian did not use much strength in this slash. The blue sword slashed down from the top of the corpse's head. After passing through the corpse, it hit the ground. With a bang, the stone tiles on the ground were shattered. Although this corpse had been pierced by the heavy sword, it was not cut in half. If it were not for the clothes on its body being torn apart and falling off from the corpse, Yang Tian would have thought that it was just an illusion. Obviously, sword chi and slashing with the sword could not destroy these corpses. With a thought, a black sphere appeared in Yang Tian's hand. With a raise of his hand, Yang Tian controlled the black hole and made it land on the head of one of the corpses. The black hole's powerful suction force immediately sucked the corpse into the black hole and ground it into dust. Suddenly, Yang Tian's eyes widened and a look of horror appeared on his face. This was because after the corpse was destroyed by the black hole, it still released a wisp of death chi. This wisp of death chi made Yang Tian feel the extreme presence of death. He could not allow this kind of death chi to enter the energy world. With a thought, Yang Tian's black hole chain suddenly reversed and ejected the wisp of death chi. Then, Yang Tian took out a leaf from the world tree from his storage bracelet. He grasped it in his hand and threw it at the wisp of death chi. The energy released by the world tree leaf quickly dissipated the death chi. "Xiaolong, burn them," Yang Tian said exasperatedly. The little blue dragon had been unable to hold back for a long time. When it heard Yang Tian's order, it immediately transformed into a huge dragon and opened its mouth. An endless stream of dragon flames poured out of its mouth. Soon, the entire palace was filled with golden dragon flames. Dense, sizzling sounds could be heard from the dragon flames. After a few seconds, when the dragon flames dissipated, not a single corpse could be seen in the vast palace. However, a black ball of fog had appeared in the middle of the palace. At some unknown time, countless wisps of death chi had condensed into a ball. Chapter 843. Such a concentrated death aura had a strong destructive power. As soon as it appeared, Yang Tian's emotions could not help but be affected. Countless negative emotions occupied Yang Tian's mind like a tide, making Yang Tian want to destroy himself immediately. What was even more unbelievable was that the entire hall, which was originally an illusion, was under the influence of the death aura's energy and began to rapidly change. The stone pillars, stone beams, and walls that made up the hall became darker in color. The surface quickly weathered, and under the surge of air, stone powder flew everywhere. Yang Tian gritted his teeth, and his face became distorted. He tightened his grip on the blue sword in his hand and stepped back step by step. The little blue dragon on the side was also restlessly using its claws to dig at the ground. The yellow stone slabs on the ground were all dug up by it, and a large pit quickly appeared. Not to mention coming into contact with this death aura, just the energy waves it emitted would make living beings unable to control themselves and have the urge to self-destruct, let alone coming into direct contact with it. Whoosh! Suddenly, Yang Tian raised his hand and shot a leaf from the world tree toward the black ball. The green light flashed and entered the black ball, disappearing without a trace. Like a stone falling into the sea, the black ball did not move at all. Yang Tian gritted his teeth and once again released a large number of leaves from the world tree from his storage bracelet. At the same time, a powerful spiritual power burst out and shredded the leaves of the world tree into pieces. Soon, under the cover of his spiritual power, a round green ball appeared and surrounded Yang Tian. Yang Tian finally breathed a sigh of relief as he was surrounded by the green ball. His state of mind immediately calmed down, and he turned his head to look at the little blue dragon. He saw that the little blue dragon's eyes were red. The energy waves emitted by the death aura made it restless and angry at the same time. Xiaolong, come here. The little blue dragon was a guy who would never give in to an enemy. It stared at the black ball and let out heavy breathing sounds. Just as it was about to crash into the black ball formed by the death aura, it heard Yang Tian's voice. Yang Tian's voice made the little blue dragon's mind suddenly clear up. It immediately swung its tail and flew toward Yang Tian. In the process, its body rapidly shrank, and in the blink of an eye, it landed on Yang Tian's shoulder. Yang Tian and the little blue dragon quickly moved away from the green ball, whose color was quickly dissipating. They only stopped when they hit the stone wall of the hall. At this moment, Yang turned to look the stone door behind him, and he did not know when it had disappeared. What nurturing palace! It's clearly nurturing death. Yang Tian couldn't help but laugh bitterly as he scanned the hall that had unknowingly turned into a sealed hall. At this moment, he completely understood that the corpses in the hall were actually a type of container used to store the death aura. To be able to condense such a terrifying death aura, the Megapode King must have killed countless living beings. When the world tree's leaves were crushed and the green energy shield was about to disappear, Yang Tian released another 100 leaves. For the time being, Yang Tian could only use this method to resist the terrifying death aura. Yang Tian couldn't help but sigh. The little blue dragon was his lucky star. If he didn't have the world tree's leaves, Yang Tian wouldn't know what to do. More than 100 leaves of the world tree lasted less than a minute before the life aura they released dissipated once again. Just as Yang Tian was about to release the world tree's leaves again, the death aura released by the black ball suddenly retracted. At the same time, a black figure slowly descended from the top of the hall and appeared in front of Yang Tian and the little blue dragon. This was a young woman wearing a black dress. Her skin was as white as jade, and her eyes were closed. She had a serene expression on her face. It could also be said that she was a female corpse. This was because there wasn't a single trace of life aura emanating from her body. This was the only corpse that remained after the little blue dragon used its dragon flames to burn the entire hall. This also meant that this female corpse was definitely different from the other corpses. As she descended, The black dress that the female corpse wore swayed gently in the wind. Her arms gradually extended and slowly rotated in the air like a black angel descending from the heavens. As she descended, her grayish-white hair gradually changed color. First it turned black, then it slowly turned red, until it became a blood-red color. At this moment, her body was already close to the black ball formed by the death aura. Yang Tian tightened his grip on the blue saber in his hand and resisted the urge to slash at her. His strong curiosity made Yang Tian look forward to the female corpse's subsequent changes. The moment the female corpse came into contact with the black ball suddenly exploded and formed a cloud of black gas that surrounded the female corpse. This mass of black gas kept surging, and purple light kept flashing within it. It was as if it was nurturing lightning, and at any time, a bolt of lightning would strike and let out a thunderous roar. This process didn't last long. After about 3 minutes, the black gas began to dissipate, and the female corpse appeared before Yang Tian's eyes again. At this moment, Yang Tian finally saw that the black gas didn't dissipate. Instead, it entered the female corpse through various openings on her body. When the black gas surrounding the female corpse completely disappeared, the female corpse slowly landed on the ground. Her bare feet touched the ground. Then, under Yang Tian and the little blue dragon's astonished gazes, the female corpse came to life. She stretched her arms and exhaled a long breath. Then, she slowly opened her hazy eyes. This action was as if she had just woken up from a deep sleep and stretched her body. She was said to have come to life because at this moment, there was a strong aura of life in her body. After absorbing the terrifying death aura, she could still come to life. It was unbelievable. The female corpse moved her body as if there was no one around. Her movements looked like a beautiful dance. When she felt that she had enough, she looked at Yang Tian. At this moment, Yang Tian saw that the female corpse's eyes were pitch black. It felt like the entrance to hell. However, soon, a pair of sapphire-like eyeballs appeared in her eyes, making her look even more beautiful. Yin hashtag at hashtag. The female corpse opened her mouth and a slow, crisp voice came out from her mouth. Yang Tian did not understand. He frowned and shook his head. At the same time, he tightened his grip on the handle of his saber. When the female corpse saw Yang Tian shaking his head, she lowered her head and fell silent for a moment. Suddenly, she moved and turned into a ray of black light, appearing in front of Yang Tian. Yang Tian was not slow either. He held his saber horizontally in front of him. Saber chi exploded and swept forward like a gust of wind. Under the fierce saber chi, the female corpse's black dress fluttered. However, her body did not move at all. She raised her hand and placed it on the blue saber in Yang Tian's hand. I have no hostility. My name is Ting Ling. The female corpse looked into Yang Tian's eyes and spoke again. This time, she spoke slowly. This time, she spoke in a language that Yang Tian could understand. Ting Ling, Yang Tian said calmly. You're a living thing? Ting Ling retracted her hand from Yang Tian's saber. She smiled and said, Life after death. You won't understand. At that moment, Yang Tian noticed that 3 purple dots had appeared on Ting Ling's forehead, forming a triangle, and disappeared in a flash. Thank you. Yang Tian's heart skipped a beat. Just as he was about to ask, he heard Ting Ling say thank you. Then, a pair of red wings appeared behind her back. A beauty like her should have white or black wings. Who would have thought that she would have a pair of wings like a bat's? However, this strange pair of wings did not ruin her beauty. Instead, it gave her a demonic aura. After the wings appeared behind Ting Ling's back, she smiled at Yang Tian again. She flapped her wings, and Yang Tian's vision blurred. Then, the space in front of him fluctuated violently. In an instant, Ting Ling had already disappeared. Along with Ting Ling, the entire hall disappeared. What a strange woman! Yang Tian let out a long breath. After the hall disappeared, he began to search again. Soon a purple scroll was dug out by the little blue dragon from under the stone slab in the middle of the hall. Chapter 844. The purple talisman scroll was the same as the other two. Aside from the runes on the front, there was also a mountain river diagram on the back. With this diagram, the entire mountain river diagram was even more complete. The strange program translated for Yang Tian that the purple talisman scroll was called the Death Talisman, the red Beauty Talisman, the yellow Weapon Talisman, and the purple Death Talisman. He wondered what talismans the next two palaces would contain. Yang Tian kept the purple talisman scroll in his storage bracelet and walked towards the fourth palace with anticipation. The fourth palace was called the Beast Taming Palace. After entering the palace, Yang Tian saw a huge mutated beast skeleton. This skeleton was very strange. Yang Tian looked at the skeleton and could imagine what this mutated beast looked like when it was alive and had flesh and blood. It had the body of a giant dragon, but there was a huge pair of wings on its back near its front legs. It looked extremely out of place. Eastern dragons did not have wings at all. If they had wings like those of Western dragons, what would they look like? The skeleton was yellowish-white. It was unknown how long it had been stored in the palace, but it was still as smooth as jade. Stepping into the palace and seeing this huge skeleton, Yang Tian could still feel the faint domineering aura it emitted. This mutated beast was actually the mount of the Megapole King when it was alive. Although the flesh and blood of powerful mutated beasts would not be devoured by bacteria, if too much time passed, the flesh and blood cells would dry up and split, slowly peeling off from the skeleton and turning into dust in the air. Yang Tian carried the huge blue dragon and slowly walked towards this huge skeleton vigilantly. This beast taming palace did not seem to be dangerous, but the experience of the previous three palaces made Yang Tian understand that it would not be so easy to pass through this palace. As expected, when Yang Tian reached the bottom of the beast bone, the scene in front of him changed all of a sudden. The hall disappeared and turned into a void. Along with Yang Tian and the little blue dragon, there was also a huge mutated beast skeleton in the void. Suddenly, a gurgling sound could be heard. After arriving in the void, the huge beast skeleton actually started to move slowly. The sound was coming from the joints of the skeleton. In the Hall of Physical Nurturing, a woman named Ting Ling had suddenly come back to life. Now that this beast that had been dead for a long time had come back to life, there was nothing strange about it. Pong! In a moment of desperation, Yang Tian lifted the giant blue blade and slashed at a thick leg bone, making a muffled sound. The blade did not actually come into contact with the beast bone. It was blocked by a layer of energy on the surface of the beast bone. The powerful rebounding force made Yang Tian retreat over 100 meters before he stopped. After Yang Tian stabilized his body, he looked at the skeleton again. He saw that the exotic beast skeleton had undergone a huge change. Yellow hair started to grow on the yellowish-white surface of the skeleton. From the looks of it, the skeleton looked like it was moldy. The yellow hair grew longer and longer until it covered the skeleton. In the end, the hair joined together tightly, forming flesh and blood. Then, scales began to grow. In less than a minute, the huge mutated beast skeleton was once again covered with flesh and blood. It had come back to life. Its appearance was similar to what Yang Tian had imagined based on the skeleton. It really did have the body of an Eastern divine dragon, with a pair of huge black wings on its back. Because of the addition of a pair of black wings, this huge golden dragon that was 50 meters long made Yang Tian feel very uncomfortable. Roar! After regaining flesh and blood, the huge yellow dragon flapped its wings and let out a furious roar. It was so loud that Yang Tian's ears were ringing. From the roar, Yang Tian could hear a strong sense of anger and sorrow. After regaining a physical body, the yellow dragon had indeed come back to life. Even from 100 meters away, Yang Tian could feel a powerful life energy coming from its body, as well as an incomparably tyrannical energy fluctuation. Seeing the appearance of a strange yellow dragon, the little blue dragon could not hold back its strong fighting spirit. It jumped out from Yang Tian's shoulder and turned into a golden dragon as huge as the yellow dragon. Roar! Immediately after, the little blue dragon also let out a furious roar. It looked like a great battle was about to break out between the two dragons. However, what happened next was not like that. When the little blue dragon appeared, the yellow dragon with wings did not pounce on Yang Tian and the little blue dragon. Instead, it stared at the little blue dragon in a daze. The way it looked at it seemed to be a little excited, like a fellow countryman seeing a fellow countryman. However, there were no tears in its eyes. Obviously, after the yellow dragon came back to life, it recognized that the little blue dragon was of the same kind. This made Yang Tian realize that the Mount of the Zhao Ji King still had its previous memories after coming back to life. For Yang Tian and the little blue dragon, it would be better if there was room for negotiation if they did not fight. Yang Tian judged from the energy fluctuations emitted from the yellow dragon's body. He understood that the power of this yellow dragon was actually stronger than that of the little blue dragon. Although the pair of black wings on its back did not look beautiful and seemed superfluous, who knew what kind of attack it would have because of this pair of black wings? Roar! After the two dragons looked at each other for a few minutes, something that surprised Yang Tian happened. The yellow dragon suddenly raised its head and let out a long roar. Compared to before, the roar this time was not angry, but it made Yang Tian feel sad. After the long roar, a gurgling sound came from the yellow dragon's body. Following that, its flesh and blood quickly dried up and finally turned black. It turned into black dust and dissipated. When a complete set of dragon bones appeared again, the situation around Yang Tian and the others changed again. They returned from the void to the hall. The skeleton that was originally standing was now scattered into a pile. The color was no longer smooth yellow and white, but dark gray. When a little blue dragon saw the pile of dragon bones, it lowered its head and let out a low and sorrowful cry. A gust of wind surged, and the dragon bones turned into gray dust and scattered in the hall. In the end, only the huge skull was left. The little blue dragon slowly walked forward and used one of its dragon whiskers to move the yellow dragon skull. The skull turned into pieces, and a golden light appeared. What emitted the golden light was a dragon orb the size of a human head. The little blue dragon used its dragon whiskers to wrap it up and put it into its mouth. Soon, powerful energy fluctuations were emitted from the little blue dragon's body. The little blue dragon's eyes also became red. Roar! The little blue dragon raised its head and let out a roar. Suddenly, it flew into the sky. At this time, the beast-taming hall had disappeared. The little blue dragon flew into the air and plunged into the fifth palace. It looked like it wanted to smash the largest palace into pieces. Chapter 845. Boom! There was a loud noise. Under the impact of the little blue dragon, the fifth palace was instantly shattered into countless pieces and scattered everywhere. At that moment, Yang Tian felt a powerful surge of rune energy, but it only appeared for a moment before it disappeared. The countless pieces that flew into the air flew into the distance and melted like ice, quickly disappearing. The palace was built from the rune energy produced by the talisman scroll. Yang Tian originally thought that after the palace was shattered by the little blue dragon, it would quickly be restored to its original state. But unexpectedly, after a moment, the palace that was shattered by the little blue dragon did not show any signs of recovery. It seemed that the little blue dragon's crash had not only shattered the palace that was created by the talisman scroll, but it had also affected the talisman scroll. He wondered if the talisman scroll that made up the palace was damaged after the little blue dragon had shattered the palace. It circled in the air a few times before landing on the foundation of the palace. It lowered its head and let out an angry and low roar at the huge stone platform in front of it. Seeing that the little blue dragon was fine, Yang Tian could not help but let out a sigh of relief. At this time, Yang Tian did not bother to look for the talisman scroll that made up the fourth palace as he quickly ran toward the fifth palace. Rumble. As soon as Yang Tian arrived in front of the stone tablet at the entrance of the fifth palace, the ground began to shake and let out a rumbling sound. It seemed that after the fifth palace was destroyed, the entire dimension would be destroyed as well. This is the Hall of Zhao Ji. Seeing the runes on the tablet, the strange program said. Yang Tian quickly walked in front of the little blue dragon. After destroying the fifth palace, the little blue dragon looked very tired. After Yang Tian arrived, the little blue dragon immediately turned to Xiao Long and returned to Yang Tian's shoulder. It closed its eyes and began to rest. To be able to destroy Zhao Ji Palace, it was clear that the little blue dragon had borrowed the power of the yellow dragon's dragon pearl. When Huang Long gave the Dragon Balls to the little blue dragon, he actually didn't ask the little blue dragon to destroy this place. This was completely the little blue dragon's own idea. Originally, after absorbing the power of the yellow dragon's dragon pearl, the little blue dragon's realm could increase again. However, in order to destroy Zhaoji Hall, the little blue dragon resolutely gave up. After the Great Heights Hall was destroyed, all that was left was a 10-meter-tall yellow stone platform. The stone platform was rectangular in shape, more than 20 meters long and 10 meters wide. It was made of extremely smooth yellow bricks. This kind of brick looked the same as the yellow bricks outside. Every yellow brick was engraved with runes. There was clearly a reason why the little blue dragon had let out such a deep roar at the stone platform. Most likely, the Zhao Ji King's corpse and the Zhao Ji talisman that Mill mentioned were hidden inside. Yang Tian held his blade and walked around the stone platform, allowing the strange program to record every single rune on it. Then, Yang Tian raised his saber at the stone platform and slashed it at the stone platform. Pung! The blue blade hit the stone platform and made a loud noise. The stone platform was protected by a talisman array. The recoil from the impact forced Yang Tian back a few steps before he was able to stop himself. Yang Tian had already expected this to happen, so he didn't use too much strength. However, he was still forced back a few steps. The blue blade in his hand almost flew out of his hand. I used 10% of my strength, but it produced twice the force. Yang Tian said with a frown as he looked at the stone platform in front of him. It seemed that destroying this stone platform was not something that could be done in a short amount of time. But at this moment, what Yang Tian needed was time. After the Zhao Ji Palace was destroyed, the foundations of the 5 palaces had begun to tremble. It wouldn't be long before it collapsed. Once the foundations were destroyed, the next step would be the destruction of the entire dimension. Luckily, after the strange program had read the runes on the stone platform, it had already accumulated enough information about the runes. Before Yang Tian had even slashed, it had already begun its calculations. The more information it read from the runes, the faster the program's calculations would become. In less than a minute, it had already calculated the weakness of the talisman array in front of it. In this world, nothing was perfect. Even the talisman array that the Zhao Ji King had designed had flaws. It was just that these flaws were not easily found by human talisman masters. But in front of the strange program, these flaws were like glowing gold under the sun. They couldn't be more obvious. Under the guidance of the strange program, Yang Tian took a few steps back and then moved a few steps to the left. At the same time, in Yang Tian's mind, an energy diagram of the runes appeared. In the middle of the picture was a rectangular stone platform. Countless colorful rays of light formed a sphere that surrounded the stone platform. These colorful lights were the rune's energy. Yang Tian looked at it carefully in his mind. Without the strange program's guidance, he quickly found the weakness of the talisman array. On the left side of Yang Tian, at the corner of the stone platform, there was a small, empty space. It was about the size of a palm. Perhaps it was to conserve energy, but the area of the talisman array that surrounded the stone platform was very small. It was just enough to surround the stone platform. This empty space was where the energy of the talisman array was coming from. Since he had found the weakness, the next step would be easy. Yang Tian smiled and quickly stepped forward. He clenched his left hand into a fist and punched the corner that was not protected by the talisman array. Bang! There was a loud noise. The stone platform that could not be destroyed by the saber was instantly shattered by Yang Tian's punch. The fist directly jumped through the talisman array and entered the stone platform, shattering it from the inside. No matter how powerful the talisman array outside was, it would not be able to do anything. Yellow bricks flew everywhere, and a blue object appeared in front of Yang Tian's eyes. The blue object was made of a translucent material. It looked like a circular container made of blue crystal. It was about 3 meters in diameter, and inside it were pieces of a corpse. It was a human corpse that had been split into many pieces. Even the head had been split in half. Yang Tian only took a glance before he slashed at the blue sphere. Crack! The blue sphere was not hard, and it shattered like an ice cube. Without the protection of the blue sphere, as soon as the shattered pieces came into contact with the air, they quickly dried up. It was the same as when Huang Long died in the void, and the shattered pieces of blue quickly melted as well. In less than a minute, the corpse had become a pile of bones. So this corpse was the great Extreme King's corpse? Yang Tian frowned as he used the blue saber in his hand to move the bones. A thin blue piece that was about the size of a palm and had runes engraved all over it appeared in front of Yang Tian's eyes. If it were not for the fact that the blue sphere that wrapped the corpse had disappeared, it would not have been easy to find this item. Yang Tian used the tip of his saber to pick the thin piece out from the broken bones. Seeing the blue piece fly into the air, Yang Tian did not use his hand to catch it. Who knew what it was? It would be troublesome if it was dangerous. The blue piece that flew into the air did not emit any dangerous aura. As it turned, a blue light shot out from it, revealing a rune. This is the Great Extreme Talisman. The strange program's voice suddenly rang in Yang Tian's mind. Chapter 846. 2 chapters combined. As soon as the strange program's voice fell, blue beams of light suddenly rose from all around the palace. The powerful rune energy enveloped the entire palace, trapping Yang Tian and the little blue dragon inside. At this time, the space outside began to change. It began to fluctuate violently. It looked like it could turn into a space annihilation at any time. The Extreme Monarch was a ruthless person when he was alive. The rune array traps he set up would not give anyone a chance to leave alive. At this time, Yang Tian couldn't help but think of Ting Ling, who left immediately after she appeared. That woman probably knew what was going to happen next, so she quickly left. Yang Tian gritted his teeth. After the strange program finished reading the Extreme Monarch Talisman, he grabbed the floating Extreme Monarch Talisman and put it into his storage bracelet. As soon as the Extreme Monarch Talisman disappeared, the ground beneath Yang Tian's feet split open. A pentagonal stone platform rose up from below. On one of its corners was a silver-white scroll. This should be the 5th scroll. Yang Tian was about to use his blade to pick it up and put away the scroll when the strange program said, "This is the rune array mechanism to open the trap array. To close the trap array, not only can you not move this scroll, you also have to put the other 4 scrolls on it. The red beauty talisman, the yellow weapon talisman, and the purple death talisman." Yang Tian had already obtained 3 scrolls. However, Yang Tian did not obtain the scroll for the beast taming hall. After the strange program finished speaking, Yang Tian took out the 3 scrolls from his storage bracelet. The 5 corners of the pentagonal stone platform were all different in color. Each color corresponded to the corresponding scroll. The little blue dragon looked at the pentagonal stone platform and then saw Yang Tian take out the 3 scrolls. It opened its mouth and spat out a black scroll. It turned out that everything in the beast taming hall, including the yellow dragon and the dragon orb, was formed by rune energy. The scroll for the beast taming hall was in the yellow dragon's dragon orb. After the little blue dragon smashed the Extreme Monarch Hall, it was so tired that it forgot about this matter. Now, the 5 scrolls were finally complete. However, Yang Tian only glanced at them. Not only did he put the 4 scrolls into his storage bracelet, he also took the silver scroll from the pentagonal stone platform and put it into his storage bracelet. Yang Tian smirked. After going through the 5 halls, we all know what kind of person the Megapole Emperor is. I dare say that even if we put 5 scrolls on it, this trap array will not disappear. Perhaps it will activate even more powerful talisman arrays. After Yang Tian finished speaking, his eyes suddenly widened. He immediately squatted down and punched the ground. Boom! There was a loud bang. The foundations of the 5 palaces were already crumbling and were no longer stable. Under Yang Tian's punch, rubble flew everywhere, and a huge crater several meters deep appeared. The foundations around the crater cracked, forming cracks that were several meters wide. After that punch, Yang Tian raised his head and looked around. He saw that the blue light around him had suddenly dimmed. Seeing this situation, Yang Tian laughed. Soon after, another punch landed on the ground. As he punched and the blue light pillar was about to disappear, Yang Tian faced the 4th palace and slashed at it. A powerful and condensed sword chi rushed out from the blue giant sword and created a huge hole in the rune's energy. Yang Tian took the opportunity to stomp his feet on the foundation and charged out of the hole. At this time, the destruction of space had begun. In less than a minute, Yang Tian had arrived at the place where he came from. The platform in front of the first ethereal hall had already been shattered. Yang Tian stood in front of the stone steps and looked up. The yellow entrance from before had already disappeared. The destruction of space outside had already begun. The talisman array that surrounded this space had not been completely destroyed. It should still be able to hold on for a while. However, it would not be long. Perhaps it would only last for a few minutes. Perhaps it would only last for a few seconds. What should he do now? Yang Tian's brows furrowed tighter and tighter. If there was no other way, he could only use his own energy to resist the destruction of space. Thinking of this, Yang Tian's heart skipped a beat. He immediately took out the Extreme Times talisman from his storage bracelet. Yang Tian had some understanding of this talisman artifact from Mier. At this time, he hoped that the Extreme Times talisman had enough energy stored in it to allow him to break open space. In his original universe, Yang Tian already possessed the energy to break open space. The destruction of space in the universe could no longer harm him. However, whether it was the continent from before or in the sea of stars, the energy of space was incomparably dense. It was not easy to break open space and resist the destruction of space. Yang Tian held the blue Extreme Times talisman in his hand and sent a strand of his consciousness into it. A powerful consciousness existed within the Extreme Times talisman. When Yang Tian's consciousness entered the Extreme Times talisman, it was swallowed up by this consciousness. The existence of a consciousness meant that there was still a spirit within the Extreme Times talisman. This should be the last trace of a spirit left behind in the Extreme Times talisman after the Extreme Times monarch's death. This was also within Yang Tian's expectations. After devouring a strand of Yang Tian's consciousness, the strand of soul within the Extreme Omen talisman did not enter Yang Tian's body. It looked like it wanted to guard the Extreme Times talisman and prevent others from successfully using it. He's already dead, but it's still so troublesome, Yang Tian muttered to himself as Red Knife 15 appeared in his hand. Under Yang Tian's control, a strand of energy from Red Knife 15's body entered Yang Tian's body. Under the control of Yang Tian's consciousness, it entered the Extreme Times talisman. When this strand of energy entered the Extreme Times talisman, Red Knife 15 trembled once again when it sensed the powerful spirit. Very quickly, Yang Tian saw a strand of red energy within the Extreme Times talisman being surrounded by Red Knife 15's energy and pulled out of the Extreme Times talisman. After destroying the spirit within the Extreme Times talisman, Yang Tian tried to control it. There was a space within the Extreme Times talisman that stored energy. It looked similar to the energy world within a human cultivator's body. In addition to a large amount of formless energy, there was also a huge blue sphere in this space that was densely packed with runes. Yang Tian's consciousness swam around the space and immediately rushed toward the blue sphere. The moment Yang Tian's consciousness touched the blue sphere, it lit up and projected a blue light in all directions. The light was filled with mysterious runes. At the same time, Yang Tian understood how to use the Extreme Times Talisman. Yang Tian had originally wanted to use the Extreme Times Talisman's energy to break open space or resist the spatial annihilation. However, after understanding the secret of the Extreme Times Talisman, he finally realized that leaving this place was actually not that difficult. After leaving a strand of consciousness in the Extreme Times Talisman and shifting his attention to the space outside the Extreme Times Talisman, Yang Tian suddenly sensed an extremely powerful spatial energy sweeping over. In the distance, some fragments of the collapsed foundation of the palace were rapidly approaching and disappearing. With a thought, the Extreme Times Talisman in Yang Tian's hand suddenly erupted with a blue light. A blue light was projected above Yang Tian's head. Very quickly, a yellow halo appeared at the end of the blue light. "Xiaolong, let's go," Yang Tian said with a smile as he shot up and rushed toward the yellow halo. The yellow halo was the entrance to this space. Just as Yang Tian rushed into the yellow halo, the spatial annihilation arrived. The space created by the Extreme Times Monarch, as well as everything that existed within it, silently disappeared. At this time, Yang Tian had already arrived at the five-color cauldron. When Yang Tian appeared in the five-color cauldron, the cauldron no longer produced yellow smoke. The Extreme Times Talisman quickly absorbed all the yellow smoke within the cauldron. What appeared in front of Yang Tian was the walls of the five-color cauldron. Countless tiny runes protruded from the walls of the cauldron. Yang Tian walked around the cauldron and waited for the strange program to record all the runes before jumping onto the edge of the cauldron. Li Nan and the others had been waiting anxiously for a long time. This was because after Yang Tian entered the yellow smoke, there was no sound at all. It was as if he had been refined by the cauldron. When he saw the yellow smoke in the cauldron disappear and Yang Tian appear on the edge of the cauldron, Li Nan let out a long sigh of relief and smiled. He didn't need a guess to know that Yang Tian had succeeded. Otherwise, the yellow smoke in the five-color cauldron wouldn't have disappeared. The five-color cauldron no longer spewed out yellow smoke. At this time, they could see that the yellow smoke in the air was fading at a speed visible to the naked eye. Soon, there would be no more yellow smoke left on this island, and it would become a livable island in the sea of stars. When Yang Tian jumped down from the five-color cauldron and landed on the yellow sand, Li Nan also arrived in front of Yang Tian. Yang Tian looked around and said to Li Nan, "Now, send a message to your patriarch. See if she can receive it." Li Nan nodded. From his storage bracelet, he took out a black crescent-shaped beast horn that was even thicker than his arm. He placed the beast horn by his mouth and blew on it. Woo, the beast horn let out a deafening woo-woo sound that spread out in all directions. This five-colored cauldron was the core of the talisman formation that surrounded this island. Now that the talisman formation was broken, the unique sound of the horn could be transmitted out of the island. Li Nan took a deep breath and continued to blow for more than a minute before he stopped. Putting down the beast horn, Li Nan smiled. "The signal we sent is very simple. The longer the sound lasts, the safer the island is and the livable it is." Yang Tian nodded and looked around again. Without the yellow smoke, this island was indeed livable. But with the Beast Tamer tribe's current strength, would they have the ability to protect this island? The answer was no. Just as Yang Tian was worrying about the Beast Tamer tribe, the same sound of the horn came from outside the island. Hearing the sound, Li Nan was even happier. He smiled at Yang Tian. "Our tribesmen didn't leave. That's great. What are you going to do next?" Yang Tian nodded as he looked into the distance and lightly said. Li Nan scratched his head. "Of course we're going to stay. This island is vast and livable. Before long, our tribesmen will multiply. Give us time, and we will become a powerful tribe in the Star Ocean." Yang Tian smiled, but did not say anything. About an hour later, Lin Zhu led the Beast Tamer tribe and appeared in front of Yang Tian. The mounts of the Beast Tamer race members galloped through the yellow sand, causing a sandstorm to erupt in their wake. Lin Zhu's mount was the first to arrive in front of Yang Tian. After jumping off the mount, Lin Zhu excitedly gave Yang Tian a hug. Yang Tian had already taken off the giant god armor and returned to his original form. Feeling Lin Zhu's soft body, Yang Tian was a bit embarrassed because his physiological reaction was too fast. Lin Zhu let go of Yang Tian and looked at Yang Tian with charming eyes before turning around to arrange the tribe's affairs. The endless grassland was plunged into darkness after the glowing trees were extinguished. It was also nighttime on the island. Thousands of Beast Tamer tribe members were gathered in several large circles, lighting bonfires and dancing excitedly. Yang Tian was drinking the wine he brought from Earth and lying on the soft grass, looking very comfortable. However, his thoughts had already flown to an unknown place, thinking about Qin Fei. "What are you thinking about?" Huey Chanshan came to Yang Tian and sat beside Yang Tian with a smile. At this time, the little blue dragon and little green turtle were nowhere to be seen. Yang Tian looked at Huey Chanshan and said, "If I leave you here, are you willing?" Huey Chanshan shook her head. "No, I want to go with you. You want to find a home for Xiaolong. I also want to find a home for Little Turtle. It's very pitiful." Yang Tian was just casually saying. Huey Chanshan's cultivation realm was not high. Yang Tian was not afraid of trouble, but he was worried about losing his life in the future. He would not be able to explain it to Huey Meow Meow. This experience made Yang Tian realize that the living environment in the Star Sea was worse than he thought. After Huey Chanshan finished speaking, tears came out of her eyes. Yang Tian hurriedly said, "Don't worry, I won't leave you alone. I'm just joking." Huey Chanshan stopped crying and smiled, then went to find Little Green Turtle. After Huey Chanshan left, Linan came over and sat beside Yang Tian. "Yang Tian, thank you so much this time." After saying that, Linan turned around and looked at a red tent not far away. He said mysteriously, "Let me tell you something. Do you see it? That's the tribe leader's tent. Tonight, she's alone in there. Do you understand what I mean?" After saying that, Linan chuckled, stood up, and left. At this moment, Yang Tian could not help but think of Lin Zhu's soft body. Just as Yang Tian was letting his imagination run wild, a rustling sound suddenly came from beside him. At the same time, the surrounding sounds suddenly disappeared. At this moment, Yang Tian felt as if time had stopped. Yang Tian sat up and turned his head to look to the side. He saw a beautiful young woman walking over. This person was Ting Ling, whom Yang Tian had seen in the Hall of Physical Nourishment. Yang Tian had thought that she had already left. He had not expected that she would suddenly appear here. "Yang Tian, what's in your hand? It smells so good." Ting Ling walked over to Yang Tian and asked curiously when she saw the wine jug in Yang Tian's hand. Yang Tian came back to his senses and handed the wine jug to Ting Ling. "This is a type of drink. You might not like it. The Beastmasters don't like it." Chapter 847. Two chapters combined into one. Ting Ling took the jug of wine from Yang Tian's hand and copied Yang Tian's actions, pouring the transparent wine into her mouth. Just as Yang Tian expected, when Ting Ling's sense of taste reacted, she could not help but spit out the wine. Ting Ling threw the jug back to Yang Tian and frowned. "What is this weird taste? It's not even as good as water." Yang Tian only smiled and did not answer. Every intelligent race would make special drinks and food. Yang Tian was not used to the food and drinks of the Beastmasters. Ting Ling looked up at the sky and copied what Yang Tian did. She lay down on the soft grass and stretched her body. "It's so good to be alive." Yang Tian smiled. "No one wants to die. Every living thing cultivates to live longer." With that said, Yang Tian could not help but glance at Ting Ling's curvy body. Instantly, he felt his body heat up. He did not know if it was because of his lust or because of the alcohol. After Ting Ling stretched, she sat up and looked at Yang Tian with a smile. "I didn't think that you would be able to come out alive." Yang Tian curled his lips. "It's not that difficult for me. Ting Ling did not say anything about Yang Tian's arrogant confidence, because it was the truth. No matter if Yang Tian was lucky or strong enough to come out alive, he still made it out alive. Father taught the Tao of talismans to my sister, Zhongling. As for me, I only learned a little. That was a long time ago. Thinking back, my memories have become blurry. I don't know if Zhongling is still alive. Ting Ling had not spoken to anyone for a long time. Meeting Yang Tian was like finding someone to talk to. At this time, she had a faint smile on her face as she recounted what had happened to her when she was alive. From Ting Ling's words, Yang Tian finally understood what kind of person Zhao Jiwang was. From the perspective of humans on Earth, Zhao Jiwang was not a pure human. He was the same as the Beastmasters, a descendant of humans and beasts. Compared to the giant god's straightforward and domineering life, the Megapode King had been patient and evil. He had lived his life as he pleased, and there were no principles, morals, or rules in his heart. In other words, Zhao Jiwang was inhumane. Ting Ling's sister, Zhongling, had not only inherited the Zhaoji King's talisman Dao, she had also inherited his personality. Not only was this woman the Megapole Monarch's daughter, but she was also his woman. What a messy relationship. You can't do anything if you're dead. After Ting Ling finished speaking, he stood up and proudly said, "Originally, the one who came back from the brink of death should have been my father. Unfortunately, he died. I crushed his body and destroyed the talisman array he set up. This is the price he should pay." Ting Ling's personality was also fickle. At this point, her aura was completely different from before. She now looked like a dark queen. In the dim light, Yang Tian suddenly realized that Ting Ling's white dress had turned black. Before he became stronger than Ting Ling, Yang Tian thought to himself, "It's best not to provoke this woman." After listening to Ting Ling's story, Yang Tian more or less understood this woman before him. Although Ting Ling was a more rule-abiding person compared to Zhao Jiwang and her sister Zhongling, she was still the Megapole Monarch's daughter. Her personality was more or less influenced by the Megapole Monarch. Ting Ling's outburst only lasted for a moment before she calmed down and sat down next to Yang Tian. "Why are you looking for me?" Yang Tian glanced at Ting Ling and asked coolly, "With your current strength, you can't help me at all. You don't even have the right to be ordered around by me. This island is not a place where you can stay for long. Your world is the entire universe. When you leave this place and become strong enough to help me, I will naturally come and find you. Since you can decipher the talisman array my father left behind, then..." At this point, Ting Ling did not continue. "Then what?" Yang Tian asked with a frown. Ting Ling smiled and snatched the wine jug from Yang Tian's hand and took a swig. This time, she finally swallowed the wine. Then, she licked her lips and said, "Although it tastes bad, after drinking a mouthful, I can't forget its taste." Yang Tian understood that Ting Ling had chosen him because of his talisman Dao. With the strange program by his side, no matter which world he was in, Yang Tian would be a talisman Dao genius in the eyes of others. Of course, the strange program was also the result of Yang Tian's hard work. After returning the wine jug to Yang Tian, Ting Ling said, "You can't help me now, but I can help you. This way, you will be indebted to me. At that time, when I need you, you won't refuse. This is a good deal." Yang Tian did not object because he really needed Ting Ling's help now. So, he said, "I want to know where the Galaxy Dragon Realm is. Back then, your father barged into the Dragon Realm and killed thousands of divine dragons. Extreme Omen Island was also destroyed by the divine dragons. You should know where the Dragon Realm is, right?" After speaking, Yang Tian looked at Ting Ling expectantly. Unfortunately, Ting Ling shook her head. "I don't know where it is either. I didn't participate in this matter, but Zhongling definitely knows. When my father was alive, he would bring her along no matter where he went." Yang Tian shook his head helplessly and asked again, "What about the God Realm?" Ting Ling shook her head again. Yang Tian sighed helplessly and gulped down a few mouthfuls of wine. Ting Ling smiled and said, "Although I don't know all this, I know how to find Zhongling. Once you find Zhongling, whether she is dead or alive. You will be able to get clues from her. Yang Tian nodded. That's a good idea. How do I find Zhongling? Ting Ling said, the answer is in the 5 scrolls you have. If Zhongling is about to die, she will definitely go to that place. After hearing Ting Ling's words, Yang Tian couldn't help but think of the mountain river illustration at the back of the scroll. At this time, the strange program showed the complete mountain river illustration made up of the 5 diagrams in Yang Tian's mind. When the 5 diagrams were complete, dense black dots appeared on the diagram. The strange program connected these dots with red lines, and it looked like a star map. Yang Tian looked at the star map and pondered. Seeing that Yang Tian was silent for a long time, Ting Ling stood up and said, in the sea of stars, whether it is human cultivators or beasts, there is no corresponding division of strength. Wait until you defeat someone as strong as my father. Then I will come and find you. After saying that, Ting Ling disappeared in a flash. After Ting Ling left, Yang Tian heard the noise of the Beastmasters again. Yang Tian looked at the spot where Ting Ling disappeared and gulped down a few mouthfuls of wine. Without using the energy in his body to expel the poison from the alcohol, Yang Tian was already drunk. He enjoyed this rare feeling and walked to the entrance of the Vermilion Scale Tribe leader's tent. Just as Li Nan said, the Vermilion Scale Tribe was waiting for him. There was not a single tribe member around. Yang Tian stood at the entrance for a while and scratched his head. He wanted to turn around and leave, but a soft and fair hand pulled him in. The sun rose. While Yang Tian was in a daze, the laughter of a young girl rang in his ears. Yang Tian opened his eyes and saw that it was Hui Chanshan. Why didn't you sleep at the leader's tent last night? The leader of the Vermilion Scale Tribe is a beauty. Looking at Yang Tian, who woke up, Hui Chanshan smiled. Yang Tian sat up and scratched his head. He smiled and said, because I'm a very possessive person. I don't want any other man to touch a woman I have touched. After saying that, Yang Tian stood up and said with a smile, we still have to stay here for a while. With the strength of the Beastmasters, we won't be able to protect this island. After all, we have to send Buddha to the west. After a short moment of excitement, the Beastmasters quickly calmed down. Each of the clansmen understood that it was impossible for them to survive on this livable island for a long time with their current strength. Although the universe was vast, there were many wandering creatures. When the yellow fog on this island disappeared, it was like a naked beauty lying there without any resistance. Anyone could get on it if they wanted to. For a moment, the worry for the future filled the hearts of every one of them. Fortunately, they met Yang Tian. Yang Tian used 10 days and nights to walk around the edge of the island. When he was done, the strange program had already sketched out the outline of the island according to the route that Yang Tian had taken. Then, it calculated a complete 3-dimensional map of the island. Next, Yang Tian used a few more days and nights to go through the cracks on the island and go underground. What made Yang Tian happy was that although the island was small, it had a lively ley line. With this ley line, it could provide a continuous supply of energy for the talisman array. A ley line was something that every livable island had to have. With it, the island could continuously draw energy from the void, allowing the plants on the island to survive and give birth to all kinds of substances that life needed. The Megapode Monarch had set up the talisman array on this island, and that space were actually the result of the ley line on this island continuously providing energy. Now that the space was destroyed, the ley line's energy had decreased. As time passed, the island would become even more lively. After coming out from underground, the strange program told Yang Tian that the most time-saving method was to restore the fog array and let the yellow fog surrounding the island reappear. This was very easy for the strange program. It only needed to modify some of the runes left behind by the Megapode Monarch. If he wanted to hide the entire island, the ley line's energy would not be able to support it for a long time. Yang Tian had originally planned to do this. Thinking of making the entire island invisible and not emitting any energy waves to the outside world, Yang Tian could not help but wonder if the Galaxy Dragon Realm and the Divine Realm he wanted to find were like this. Perhaps they were near the island, but they were unable to detect their presence. After surveying the entire island, Yang Tian got busy again. After more than 20 days, he finally restored the fog array on the island. At the same time, Yang Tian set up many powerful killing arrays within the fog array. This way, the Beastmaster race would have a safe environment to live in. Apart from those freakishly strong experts in the galaxy, no other life form would be able to compete with the Beastmaster race for this island. Now, Yang Tian had fulfilled his promise to Lin Zhu. Yang Tian, are you really not going to consider staying here? I can do it for you. Lin Zhu looked at Yang Tian, his eyes full of hidden bitterness. To Yang Tian, this was even more tempting than before. Yang Tian was about to leave. He had wasted too much time here. Before Lin Zhu could finish, Yang Tian said, I have fulfilled my promise to you, but I still have many promises to others and to myself. Although the galaxy is vast, there will be a day when we meet again. Lin Zhu sighed and took out the fragment of the galaxy map from his storage bracelet and placed it in Yang Tian's hand. This was the promise she made with Yang Tian. Lin Zhu thought it would take a long time. She did not expect that she would have to give this fragment of the galaxy map to Yang Tian so soon. Yang Tian smiled and injected a trace of energy into the fragment of the map. The map immediately lit up and projected a faint red light. There was nothing in the red light because this place was already outside of the map's range. Yang Tian did this to verify the authenticity of the map. Lin Zhu was not unhappy about this. If it were her, she would have done the same. The map was real. Yang Tian immediately put it in his storage bracelet. Lin Zhu then said, Yang Tian, remember, the back of the map is the teleportation formation map to the ancient battlefield. If one day you can gather all the fragments of the map, don't forget about this. Because in order to make it appear, you have to reach the designated location. Reach the designated location? Lin Zhu had not mentioned this to Yang Tian before. In fact, even if she did not mention it, Yang Tian would naturally find out when he had the chance to collect all the fragments of the map in the future. After bidding farewell to Lin Zhu and Li Nan, Yang Tian and Hui Chanshan left the island and entered the galaxy again. When the yellow island became a small dot in their eyes, Yang Tian, who was sitting on the turtle's back, took out 5 scrolls and put them together according to their positions. At the same time, the strange program once again displayed a complete map in Yang Tian's mind. During this period of time, Yang Tian had been busy and did not have time to think. Now that he had left and was in the endless galaxy, he had a lot of time to think. In his mind, those dots were connected by the strange program to form a map. Yang Tian kept thinking about it. He imagined countless strange beasts of different shapes and sizes in the painting. The strange program cooperated with Yang Tian and turned the strange beasts imagined by Yang Tian into a 3-dimensional map. However, from Yang Tian's point of view, all of these exotic beasts were extremely uncoordinated. Their heads were either too big, or they had extra useless parts on their bodies. This was indeed a good way to pass the time. Unknowingly, the little green turtle found another island according to its senses. This island was called Hanji. What Yang Tian did not know was that he and the little blue dragon were about to face a difficult and long battle. Chapter 848. Muddy Island was a special island in the Star Ocean. Most of the islands were occupied by the beast race, and outsiders were not allowed to enter. However, Muddy Island was different. Any race could enter the island at any time. Of course, after entering the island, they had to follow the island's rules. The island was not rich in resources, but it was because of this that this island was especially prosperous compared to other islands. Some of the islands in the Star Ocean had teleportation formations, and Muddy Island had one. However, it was ridiculously expensive to use a teleportation formation here. The ruler of this island was a beast race called the Lonely Deer. In the Star Ocean, this beast was very famous because it was very powerful. In the Star Ocean, Muddy Island was not the only island owned by the Lonely Deer race. This island was more than 10 times larger than the yellow island Yang Tian was on. The little green turtle carried Yang Tian, Huey, and Chan Chan and quickly landed at the edge of Muddy Island. During this process, Yang Tian and the others did not encounter any obstacles. The gravity of Muddy Island was stronger than the Yellow Island, but the air density was only 1/3 of the Yellow Island's. Moreover, the temperature of this island was much lower than the Yellow Island. Yang Tian estimated that it was about -20 degrees Celsius. Such an environment was difficult for ordinary humans to survive, but it was not bad for powerful beasts and cultivators. The main color of Muddy Island was black. The black mountain rocks, black plants, and even the water in the river were all black in contrast. Fortunately, this was a world with life. When Yang Tian arrived on this island, other than a large patch of black, there were also beasts and humans in colorful clothes. There were many beasts and humans on the island. There were small people less than a meter tall and giants more than 10 meters tall. Some of them were burly men, and some of them were delicate beauties. Different races had different skin colors. A yellow-skinned human like Yang Tian was very rare on Muddy Island. The place where Yang Tian landed was at the edge of Muddy Island. There were circles of black stone houses around the island, making it look extremely crowded. The people who lived there were mostly wanderers in space. In other words, they were so poor that they could only live in the worst part of the island. The conditions were extremely poor, and the security situation was not very good. When Yang Tian arrived and walked on the path between the black stone houses, many unfriendly gazes gathered on them. Wherever intelligent beings gathered, there would be commercial activity. The road between the black stone houses was more than 10 meters wide, and both sides of the road were filled with stalls. Many of the stalls were filled with meat. Yang Tian saw that one of the stalls had half a human corpse hanging on it. A 3-meter-tall man gave a black crystal to the stall owner and bought the bloody corpse. Seeing this situation, Yang Tian couldn't help but frown. He was very disgusted and angry. This was because this was a real human corpse. It was Yang Tian's first time seeing a human being sold as food by the beastmen. Looking at the man carrying half a human corpse, Yang Tian narrowed his eyes and followed him. The man walked along the road for a few hundred meters, turned into an alley, and walked into a courtyard. The courtyard was not big, about 100 square meters. It was surrounded by a wall less than 2 meters tall, made of stone. There were 3 stone houses inside. There were 3 other men in the courtyard. They were about the same size as the man, carrying half a human corpse. It seemed that the 4 of them were of the same race. There was a big pot in the courtyard, and the water was already boiling. The man who carried the corpse walked into the courtyard and laughed. He seemed very happy. He threw the corpse on a chopping board made of black stone slabs by the stone wall. He took out a knife and chopped the corpse into pieces. After washing it with water, he threw it into the pot. Then he took out a fist-sized bottle and poured some red powder into it. The temperature of the water was very high. In less than a minute, the smell of cooking meat wafted out of the pot. Yang Tian and Hui Chan stood outside the courtyard and watched everything silently. When she saw one of the men stirring the pot with a fork, Hui Chan finally couldn't help but vomit by the wall. Yang Tian had already blocked his sense of smell. Seeing Hui Chan's uncomfortable appearance, he walked to her side and patted her back. Hui Chan was a pure human. It was the first time she saw a human being cooked as food. Those 4 burly men were not humans. They were only in human form. Although they were eating humans, they were in human form because it was more convenient for them to live in human form. %yen hashtag. Hui Chan's vomiting alarmed the 4 men in the courtyard. One of them walked out and saw Yang Tian and Hui Chan standing by the wall. He pointed at the 2 of them and shouted angrily. To them, Yang Tian and the rest were trespassing on their private property. Of course they were unhappy. Facing the man's angry shout, Hui Chan wiped her mouth and pointed at the man. You eat humans. Ha ha ha. The nose of one of the 4 men twitched a few times, and a pleasantly surprised expression appeared in his eyes. He whispered a few words to his 3 companions, and then the 4 of them burst out laughing. Yang Tian saw their actions and expressions and knew that they had smelled Hui Chan Chan's scent. Without a doubt, they saw Chan Chan as food. The half of the body that the man carried back was a male body. Compared to Chan Chan, the smell was much worse. They were happy that food was delivered to them. The four of them exchanged glances before their figures flashed and surrounded Yang Tian's group. Although the four of them looked rough, they were very agile. In the blink of an eye, they had surrounded Yang Tian and the rest. The four of them did not have any weapons. After they surrounded Yang Tian and the rest, their bodies started to change. First, his hands and legs turned into sharp claws at an extremely fast speed. Black spikes grew out of his arms and legs. Then, their heads became bigger and split in the middle. A head that looked like a crocodile's appeared. During this transformation process, their height also increased by a lot, reaching a height of 4 meters. They didn't completely transform. They only transformed into half-human, half-beast forms before stopping. After transforming, the four monsters looked at Hui, Yi, and Chan Chan, and saliva flowed out of their mouths. It was unknown whether they were imagining Hui Yi and Chan Chan being eaten by them, or smelling the fragrance of human meat coming from the big pot in the courtyard. Chapter 849. 2 chapters in 1. Xiaolong kill them. Looking at the four half-human, half-beast guys, Yang Tian narrowed his eyes and said lightly. The little blue dragon was already eager to try. As soon as Yang Tian finished speaking, it jumped from Yang Tian's shoulder, flew into the air, and transformed into a golden dragon more than 20 meters long. Roar dozens of meters in the air, the transformed little blue dragon looked down at the four monsters below and let out a low roar. Even if there was a language barrier, the four monsters could feel the little blue dragon's contempt for them. Looking up at the little blue dragon, one of the monsters also let out a roar. On its back, a pair of fleshy wings suddenly grew out. These four crocodile-like exotic beasts could actually grow wings. Whoosh! This monster flapped its fleshy wings, bounced its legs, and rushed straight toward the little blue dragon in the sky. This guy's speed was extremely fast. It looked like a bolt of lightning. The little blue dragon's eyes flashed with a fierce light. Looking at the flying monster, it slapped it with its claws. Pong! The flying monster was slapped by the little blue dragon and fell from the sky. Its speed was even faster than a meteorite falling from the sky. It fell right into the boiling pot and smashed the heavy metal pot into pieces. The soup and meat flew everywhere. Looking at this scene, Yang Tian was a little surprised. The combat strength of these four exotic beasts wasn't very strong. They were actually slapped down by the little blue dragon's claws. Whoosh! Suddenly, there was another sound of wind. Another monster saw that Yang Tian seemed to be distracted, so it moved and pounced toward Yang Tian. During this process, its pair of blackened claws kept waving, forming afterimages. Pung! Yang Tian raised his blue saber and blocked the monster's claws. When the saber in his hand came into contact with the monster's claws, a powerful impact was transmitted from the saber to Yang Tian's arms, causing Yang Tian's arms to feel numb. Yang Tian was surprised. This monster's strength was much stronger than he had expected. It seemed that the little blue dragon's strength had increased by quite a bit. Previously, the little blue dragon had swallowed the yellow dragon's dragon pearl. Although it had lost a lot of energy after destroying the Zhaoji Palace, the remaining energy had increased its strength by a lot. At this time, the little blue dragon was only one step away from the Heaven's Gate realm. The monster that was slapped down by the little blue dragon had just climbed out of the hole in the ground when the little blue dragon landed. Its huge dragon claws slammed down, and with a boom, the monster was pressed into the ground. Several pillars of blood sprayed out from the little blue dragon's dragon claws. The monster under its claws had already been crushed. Yang Tian and one of the monsters clashed and quickly separated. When the little blue dragon killed one of the monsters, Yang Tian also slashed the monster that was attacking him in half. Yang Tian did not use his full strength in that slash. In just a few breaths, two monsters had been killed by Yang Tian and the little blue dragon. Roar! Seeing that two of its companions had been killed in an instant, one of the monsters quickly transformed into a monster that was about 10 meters long. Its body was shaped like a crocodile, and it had a pair of wings. It raised its head and let out a long roar. As for the other monster, it pounced toward Huey Chan-chan. With a poof, Yang Tian appeared in front of Huey Chan-chan in time and slashed horizontally, cutting the monster in half. The remaining monster knew that it could not win, so it flapped its wings and flew toward the center of the town. But the little blue dragon would not let it escape. A powerful bolt of electricity shot out from its two horns. The monster that wanted to escape was hit by the powerful electricity, and its body was instantly charred black. Smoke rose from it as it fell from the sky and smashed into a stone house. The commotion caused by this battle naturally attracted a large number of beasts. After the battle was over, Yang Tian looked around. There were many beasts in the nearby alleys and on the roofs of the houses. They were all staring at them with their eyes wide open. Chan-chan, let's leave this place immediately. Yang Tian immediately pulled Huey Chan-chan away from the alleyway that they came from. The beasts in the alleyway all made way for them. The little blue dragon immediately turned back into a mini dragon and landed on Yang Tian's shoulder. As for the little green turtle, it knew that it was not strong enough. It had already turned back into a little turtle and lay in Huey Chan-chan's arms with a satisfied expression. After returning to the main road of the town, Yang Tian let out a sigh of relief after mixing with the beast that had turned back into humans. He had just arrived, and he had already killed 4 beasts. In this world where beasts were the main population, he did not know if he would cause any trouble. Actually, Yang Tian did not even need to think. He already knew the result. But he did not expect that because of this, the situation would become more and more serious. After walking along the main road of the town for more than an hour, Yang Tian finally stopped. That was because he heard a familiar language. The voice was not clear. Mixed in with the loud noises of the beasts, it sounded intermittent. Yang Tian stopped and turned around. He saw a huge archway building. Under the archway was a 10-meter-wide main road. Many beasts were entering and exiting. A gust of wind blew out from inside, bringing with it a strong smell of blood. What was this place? Out of curiosity, Yang Tian pulled Hui and Chan-chan inside. The further they went, the stronger the smell of blood became. Yang Tian even saw a man carrying half of a mutated beast corpse as he happily walked out of the building. At this moment, Yang Tian finally understood what this place was. It was very likely that this was a slaughterhouse. After walking for more than 30 meters, the strong smell of blood made Huey Chan-chan cover her nose uncontrollably. After walking past a stone door, the situation inside finally appeared in front of Yang Tian's eyes. This was a spacious area of about 100 acres. In the middle, there were huge black cages made of spiked fences. There were all kinds of beasts inside. The cages were placed very messily. Many beasts were surrounding the cages and pointing at the beasts inside. Around this area, there were wide ditches. The liquid flowing inside was dark red. It was unknown if the water was mixed with blood or if it was all blood. Yang Tian glanced around and saw a beast the size of a cow. It had 2 horns and was covered in green scales being dragged out of the cage. This was an injured exotic beast. Its body was filled with fist-sized holes, and the tips of its 2 horns were broken. It was on the verge of death. After the 2 burly men dragged the beast out of the cage, they did not stop. They dragged it to the side of the ditch. One of the men took out a huge black axe and chopped off the beast's head. Bright red blood immediately gushed out of the beast's severed neck and flowed into the ditch that was 3 meters wide. Then, the 2 men skillfully dissected the beast. What disgusted Yang Tian and Huey Chan-chan was that the 2 men were dissecting the beast's corpse while eating raw beast meat. This was really a slaughterhouse. Yang Tian frowned as he watched the beast being slaughtered. After that, he pulled Huey Chan-chan and walked toward the cages in front. Yang Tian came here because he heard a human's voice. It was the language of Huey Chan-chan's hometown. The area was spacious. Although there were many beasts, it did not seem crowded. Yang Tian walked past the cages, hoping to hear the familiar voice again. You bunch of savage beasts. One day, my people will descend upon your territory and kill you all. They will skin you and make jerky out of you. After walking past dozens of cages, Yang Tian was a little disappointed. Suddenly, a wave of curses came from the crowd of beasts in front. Yang Tian immediately quickened his steps and walked toward a small group of beasts. Most of the beasts that had transformed into humans were very tall. In the eyes of Yang Tian and Huey Chanshan, this group of beasts was like a city wall. Yang Tian did not have time to change his form. He released his powerful spiritual power and knocked the tall beasts away. When the last beastman was pushed away by Yang Tian finally saw a man with messy hair in beastly clothes. This man was being choked by a tall beastman and was being moved around in the air. It seemed like this man was being displayed by the beastman. This was a real human. His body structure was even purer than Yang Tian's bloodline. However, because of this, he was the most delicious meat in the eyes of the beasts. Perhaps in addition to the taste, the spirit of the beast would also be satisfied when they ate humans. The surrounding beastmen drooled when they saw this human being carried. They were really drooling. When Yang Tian pulled Huey Chanshan over, many beasts quickly gathered their gazes on Yang Tian and Huey Chanshan. The smell of Huey Chanshan's body and her white and tender skin seemed to taste even better. The person being carried by the beastmen cursed in a language that Yang Tian could understand, but he was not satisfied. Soon he started cursing in another language, causing the surrounding beastmen to laugh out loud. Judging from the voice, this person should be a young man. Soon, the bidding began. The surrounding beastmen all took out a type of black crystal and placed it in their open palms. Yang Tian did not know what kind of material these beastmen were using. This was the second time he had seen it since he came here. It was probably a common currency on Muddy Island. The crystals that the beastmen took out did not have a regular shape. Some were big and some were small. It seemed like the bigger the crystal, the more purchasing power it had. The beastman carrying the young man looked around and finally walked towards another beastman who was holding a fist-sized black crystal. As he walked, he kept muttering. From his tone, he was probably complaining that the price was too low and no one was willing to give him a satisfactory price. At this moment, Yang Tian raised his right hand and opened his palm. A colorful beast core appeared in his hand. Yang Tian wanted to save this person not only because he could speak a language that he could understand and could be used as a translator, but also because he was a human, no matter where or what kind of environment he was in. As long as Yang Tian had the ability, he would not allow his own kind to be eaten by the beastmen. This beast core was obtained from the Blood Isle. Its value was definitely greater than the fist-sized black crystal. Exotic beasts with colorful beast cores in their bodies were extremely powerful. Yang Tian knew from the beast tamer tribe that not all exotic beasts in the Star Ocean had colorful beast cores. Not only powerful exotic beasts could transform into human form. The colorful beast core in Yang Tian's hand attracted the attention of all the beastmen as soon as it appeared. This was an energy crystal from an exotic beast. It was much more powerful than the beast cores in their bodies. Sensing the energy ripples coming from the beast core, they knew that it was a crystal from a savage beast. Savage beasts were extremely powerful exotic beasts that had low intelligence and were unwilling to transform into human form. A small beast core like this could be exchanged for a basket of black crystals. Yang Tian curled his finger at the beastman that was holding the young man. When the beastman saw this, he was stunned for a moment, but he quickly reacted and walked toward Yang Tian excitedly. At this moment, the young man that was being held by the beastman finally noticed Yang Tian and Huey Chanshan. Immediately, a lot of gibberish came out of his mouth. Yang Tian did not understand the language that the beastman was speaking, so he did not say anything. The beastman that was holding the young man came in front of Yang Tian in a few steps. He took the colorful beast core from Yang Tian's hand and threw the young man in front of Yang Tian. Then, He squeezed through the crowd and left. Ah! At this moment, Huey Chan, who was next to Yang Tian, screamed. It turned out that one of the beastmen could not help but touch Huey Chan. Come with us. Yang Tian immediately realized that they could not stay here for long. He said to the young man that was lying on the ground and pulled Huey Chan away. Wait for me. The young man that was lying on the ground understood Yang Tian's words. His eyes were filled with joy as he crawled up from the ground and shouted. More than an hour later, Yang Tian sighed as he lay in a small, steaming pool. At this moment, the little blue dragon was also swimming around in the pool. In a small pool that was next to Yang Tian, the young man had already washed off the dirt on his body. He had shaved off his blue hair and became bald. The pool that he was in was filled with murky water. Luckily, the water in the pool was flowing. Soon, the water in the pool became clear. I did not expect that there would be a bathhouse in such a barbaric place. Yang Tian exclaimed as he looked at the bald man. If it were not for this guy leading the way, he did not know how long it would take for him to familiarize himself with this place. This young man's name was Bea. He said that he was born under a cliff in the north of his hometown. Thus, his mother gave him this name. When Bea heard Yang Tian's exclamation, he turned around and said with a bitter smile, "Don't underestimate the beast men. Compared to us humans, they are not stupid. In a sea of stars, human beings are nothing more than the most delicious meat in their eyes." With that, Bea asked curiously, "Yang Tian, why did you come to the galaxy instead of staying in the land where you can live in peace?" Yang Tian took out a wine flask and took a sip. He said calmly, "I want to go to two places, the Divine Dominion and the Dragon Field." Chapter 850. Two chapters combined into one. I don't know about the Divine Dominion, but my tribe knows about the Dragon Field, Bea said as he pointed at the little blue dragon that was swimming in the pond like a little fish. Slap! When the little blue dragon heard that, it slapped the water with its tail and jumped up. It stared at Bea. When Bea saw how excited the little blue dragon was, he looked at the little blue dragon and said with a smile, "Although I have never been to the Dragon Field, I have seen a dragon like you. It was when I was young. One day, an injured white dragon landed on the island where my tribe lived. It stayed for 3 days and nights before leaving. During that time, the elders of my tribe strictly ordered our people to go up and disturb it. They even sent the tribe's doctor to treat the dragon's injuries. After the white dragon left, the tribe leader and the elders sealed off the news and did not allow our people to talk about it. Yang Tian, if you can bring me back, I will have the chance to learn more about the dragon race and some information about them." All right. When Yang Tian saw that Bea did not seem to be lying, he immediately nodded in agreement. Next, Bea told Yang Tian how he was captured by the beasts and how he was sold here. The island that Bea lived on was called the Source Island. The Source Island was in the shape of a letter 8. The people that lived on the island were all human cultivators. There were about 10 million of them. Because the resources on the Source Island were not rich, only 10 million people could survive. Therefore, those that had reached the age of 20 must leave the Source Island and travel in the Star Ocean for at least 10,000 days and nights before they could return to the Source Island. Yang Tian did not know how long 10,000 days and nights were on the Source Island, but he estimated that it would be around 10 to 30 years. This was a way for the Source Island to reduce the population. They wanted the young people to go out and train. If they died, the resources on the Source Island would not be used up. Those that could survive in the Star Ocean for 10 to 30 years and return to the Source Island would not only become stronger, they would also have accumulated a wealth of survival experience. It would not be an exaggeration to say that they were elites. Such people would quickly be put in important positions. Bea had left the Source Island for more than 10,000 days and nights on the island. If he could return to the island alive, as a man, he had the right to choose dozens of beautiful women to accompany him. He would also receive a farm, and 2 of his children would be exempted from leaving the island. In other words, after Bea returned, 2 of his children would not have to leave the island and go to the dangerous Star Ocean to train. There were at least 100 brothers and sisters in the Northern Cliff. After being away for such a long time, The number of brothers and sisters must have increased. Bea told Yang Tian about his situation on Source Island and his family. He also told Yang Tian about how he survived in space after leaving Source Island. It was not easy for a weak human being to survive in the sea of stars, as a delicacy in the mouths of many beasts. Fortunately, Bea knew that when he grew up, he would leave the island and travel the Star Ocean. Thus, he was very diligent and learned many skills, such as refining metals, making weapons, building houses, sewing clothes, making daily necessities, etc. He also learned many different languages. Bea and many other youths of the same generation were placed on an island called Star Rock by their elders. From the beginning, they were hunted by the beasts. Bea wasn't the strongest of the youths, but he managed to survive. This was because the beast race that captured him, called the tricolor ear race, had taken a fancy to the skills he had learned. Bea spent a very long time in the tricolor ear race. As his contributions to the tricolor ear race increased, he rose from the status of a slave to an elder of the tricolor ear race. This was extremely rare among the beast race. Bea had planned to continue living among the beasts. Unfortunately, the tricolored island, where the tricolored ear tribe lived, was suddenly attacked by the thorny tail tribe. The tricolored ear tribe was defeated and Bea was captured alive. Then, he used his own skills to survive among the thorny tail tribe. Bea's life in the thorny tail race was not so good. Not only did he have to contribute his skills to the thorny tail race, he was also often whipped. Thus, Bea escaped from the thorny ear race and began his exile in the life cliff. He encountered many dangers and was finally captured by a stray beast man and sold as food in a slaughterhouse. If not for Yang Tian's timely arrival, Bea would have been slaughtered and become food for the beast race. Your luck is really good. After Bea finished speaking, Hui Chanchan's voice came from behind the green cloth curtain. Bea smiled bitterly. Isn't that so? Thousands of us left together. I wonder if even 10 of us return alive. Didn't you find other islands to migrate to? Yang Tian asked. Bea said, of course. Moreover, it has never stopped. Unfortunately, even though the universe is vast and there are numerous islands, they have all been occupied by the powerful beast race. With the strength of our race, we can defend the islands, but we are still far from being able to attack and occupy other islands. In the galaxy, you're not the only human race, right? Why don't you all work together? Yang Tian asked again. Bea knew that Yang Tian was a newbie in the galaxy and explained seriously. You are right. In the galaxy, there are many humans. If they work together, they can easily carve out a large space in the galaxy and build a country. However, they're too far apart, and it is not convenient to communicate. At the same time, the beast race is watching from the side, so they cannot do their best. Even if they work together, in the process of war, there will be all sorts of conflicts between the races. That's true. Yang Tian nodded helplessly. After coming to the galaxy, he really wanted to see a strong and prosperous human country, especially when he saw humans being treated as food by the beast race. After the bath, Yang Tian handed a set of clothes to Bea. The three of them tidied up and left the bathhouse. The bathhouse was very big and was next to a small hill. It was located outside of a cluster of stone houses and seemed very remote. The things made by the beast race were very crude. The architectural style of the bathhouse was similar to the slaughterhouse Yang Tian had seen before. It was surrounded by stone walls, and there were small pools of around 10 square meters dug out from the hot water. The pools were supported by stone pillars and covered by animal skins. After exiting the bathhouse, the three of them didn't walk far before they were surrounded by a group of beasts. The clothes and smell of these people were the same as the 4 beast race people Yang Tian had killed. It seemed that their enemies had come looking for them. After wandering in the galaxy for a long time, Bea was very familiar with the beast race people. Even if these beast race people didn't transform, he could tell which beast race they were from just by smelling their scent. We call them the Sawtooth beast race. Bea glanced at the beastmen around them and whispered into Yang Tian's ear. The Sawtooth tribe is famous for being greedy and hard to deal with among the beastmen. If you kill one of them and the others find out, They will continue to hunt you down until they kill you or until they are scared of killing you. Only then will they stop. Yang Tian smiled. The sawtooth beast race lives up to their name. They are very similar to a beast called a crocodile, where we come from. Although there were dozens of sawtooth beasts, Yang Tian didn't think much of them. In the face of absolute power, numbers didn't matter much. Even if there were hundreds of them, Yang Tian and the little blue dragon were confident that they could kill them all. After the dozens of human-shaped sawtooth beasts surrounded Yang Tian and the others, their eyes were filled with ferocity and greed. In the eyes of the sawtooth beasts, Yang Tian and the others were not only enemies, but also delicious food. Yang Tian took out Blue Saber, and with a thought, the giant god armor covered his body. The little blue dragon glanced at the dozens of sawtooth beasts coldly and flew into the air, transforming into a dragon that was more than 20 meters long. Bea wasn't very strong, but he spat out a black ring and put it on his finger. A heavy red, curved blade appeared in his hand. This time, there were many enemies. Huey Chanchan also took out a pair of silver short blades, ready to fight at any moment. A battle was about to break out. Whoosh! Suddenly, a huge red horse descended from the sky. After landing on the ground, it quickly transformed into a big man wearing red battle armor and holding a huge black axe. Bea said to Yang Tian, "This is a warrior from the Lone Deer tribe." After transforming into a human, the giant deer tribe warrior raised his black axe and pointed at the dozens of sawtooth beasts and Yang Tian's group. He began to talk. Bea said, "This Lone Deer tribe warrior doesn't want us to fight here. If we want to fight, we have to go to a more open area." As soon as Bea's voice fell, a few more gusts of wind sounded. 8 huge red horses flew over. They flew in the sky and faced off against the little azure dragon in the sky. The lone deer beasts looked similar to Pegasi. They were covered in armor and had a pair of wings on their backs. They were hairless but covered in red scales. The lonely deer beast's aura was much stronger than the sawtooth beasts. Seeing 8 more lone deer beasts, Bea said bitterly, "This is going to be troublesome." "Why?" Yang Tian asked. Bea said, "The rule here is that whenever the lone deer tribe intervenes in a battle, there must be a final victor. There are only 3 of us in Xiaolong, but there are many sawtooth beasts on Muddy Island. If we fight, they will keep appearing. If we try to escape during this process, we will become enemies with the lone deer tribe." After Bea said that, Yang Tian frowned and said unhappily, "What kind of stupid rule is this? We don't have that many people. They can take turns and kill us." Bea said helplessly, "There's nothing we can do. The lone deer tribe is too strong. Since we're in their territory, we have to abide by their rules." Yang Tian snorted unhappily and said coldly, "Then let's kill. It's been a long time since I've relaxed. Let's see if the sawtooth beasts are enough for us to kill." With that, Yang Tian turned and ran toward an open area not far away. About 10 minutes later, Yang Tian and the group stopped at a spacious area. They lifted their heads and looked around. There was not a single building in sight. This was a good place to fight. After stopping, Yang Tian's group was quickly surrounded by the sawtooth beasts. The 9 warriors of the lone deer tribe saw that Yang Tian's group was obedient and retreated far away. They all transformed into their human forms and quietly watched. Because of this rule, there were very few large-scale battles on Muddy Island, even though there were many beasts. "Yang Tian, the lone deer tribe must have found out that you killed 4 of them. This battle was deliberately arranged by them." The lone deer tribe is a warlike tribe. Before Bailu could finish, the sawtooth beasts moved. More than 10 of them turned into half-human, half-beast forms and charged at Yang Tian's group. The others grew wings and flew into the air, ready to attack the little blue dragon. The sawtooth beasts rarely used weapons. Their claws and fangs were their most powerful weapons. Seeing the sawtooth beasts charging at him from all directions, Yang Tian waved the blue blade in his hand, and an invisible blade energy spread out like ripples on the surface of the water. The attack had a large range and was not concentrated. When it hit the sawtooth beasts, it only paused their movements for a moment. Bea also moved and threw out the red blade in his hand. As the heavy blade flew, it split into 2, then 4, and finally 16 blades. They formed a wall of blades and slashed at the 5 sawtooth beasts in front of them. Uff! There was a muffled sound. One of the sawtooth beasts that was running at high speed was cut in half by Bea's attack. At this moment, Yang Tian realized that only one of the saber shadows from Bea's saber was real. The others were all saber shadows used to confuse the enemy's vision and did not have any offensive power. This attack also allowed Yang Tian to see Bea's combat power. If Bea was not hiding his strength, then his combat power was about the same as the 3 sawtooth beasts combined. It was no wonder that he was captured. Because his combat power was not strong, and he had not seen the true power of Yang Tian and the little blue dragon, Bea was worried. When Bea attacked, Huey Chan snorted and shouted, "Little turtle!" Seeing the sawtooth beasts eating their own kind, Huey Chan was disgusted by them. She also used her most powerful combat skill. Little green turtle was already lying on the ground with its head and limbs retracted into its shell. It looked like an oval rock with a diameter of 3 meters. Before Huey Chan called out, Little Green Turtle, who was connected to Huey Chan, had already extended its head. When it saw Huey Chan cross the 2 blades in her hands, it opened its mouth and spat out a green breath that landed on the 2 silver-white blades. At this moment, Hui, Yi, and Chan separated their blades, creating a large green net formed by energy. They flew towards the 2 sawtooth beasts that were charging at them. Unfortunately, while the net was unique, it was not very powerful and was easily broken by the 2 sawtooth beasts. Huey Chan was surprised, but she soon became discouraged. At this time, she felt that she was a burden to Yang Tian and that she could not help Yang Tian. Little Green Turtle opened its mouth and swallowed the discouraged Huey Chan. Then it retracted its head and limbs into its shell. This way, Yang Tian did not have to take care of Huey Chan and could focus on the battle. Chapter 851. 2 chapters combined into one. Hiss. More than a dozen sawtooth beasts quickly closed in. They waved their claws and attacked Yang Tian and Bea from different angles, letting out ear-piercing screeches. These guys were using a joint attack tactic. At that moment, the 2 of them flashed and dodged the sawtooth beast's claws. From the side, Yang Tian and Bea were completely enveloped by the sawtooth beast's claws. Yang Tian was not worried. The sawtooth beasts were not as fast as him, and with their strength, they would not be able to destroy his giant god armor. But Bea was different. His speed could not be compared to Yang Tian's. In just a few blinks of an eye, several wounds appeared on his shoulder and waist, and he was bleeding profusely. Luckily, Yang Tian appeared in time and forced away the 4 sawtooth beasts that were attacking Bea. Then, he pulled Bea to the side. The sawtoothed beast didn't even let the little green turtle go. One of the sawtoothed beasts scratched the little green turtle's shell a few times, leaving only a few white marks. In a fit of anger, the sawtoothed beast picked up the little green turtle and used it as a rock, smashing it repeatedly on the ground, making pong sounds. But even then, it could not hurt little green turtle. When Yang Tian saw this, he frowned and raised his left hand. Red Sword 15 appeared in his hand. Then, Yang Tian slashed at the sawtooth beast that was smashing little green turtle. A blue sword chi shot out and hit the sawtooth beast. The sword chi silently pierced through the sawtooth beast's body. Pong! The sawtooth beast, whose spiritual body was destroyed, suddenly widened its eyes and fell to the ground stiffly. Yang Tian did not want to take out Sword 15 so quickly, because to him, every battle in the galaxy was a kind of training. If he used Sword 15, the battle would be much easier. But in a situation like this, he had to finish the battle as soon as possible. What? What is this sword? Seeing Yang Tian use the red saber in his hand to kill a sawtooth beast with a single strike, Bea asked while panting. Yang Tian did not answer Bea's question. With a flicker, he turned into a series of afterimages. After a series of puffing noises, a big half of the tens of sawtooth beasts fell to the ground. Among the sawtooth beasts that were killed, more than half of them were destroyed by 15th Blade Chi. When facing enemies who were weaker than him, Yang Tian used 15 moves. Each move was fatal and successful. In the sky, the little blue dragon was about to finish the battle. In terms of physical bodies, they were not as strong as the little blue dragon. In terms of special attack abilities, the sawtooth beasts did not have any. They only had sharp claws and a mouthful of sharp teeth. In terms of flying speed, they were not as fast as the little blue dragon. Little Azure Dragon didn't let these beasts get close to it. It spat out dragon flames and used powerful electric currents to make the sawtooth beasts flapping their wings fall from the sky with black smoke all over their bodies. They struggled and howled as they fell from the sky. 47 sawtooth beasts were finished off by Yang Tian and the little blue dragon in less than 3 minutes. The silent deer warriors who were watching from the side were surprised by the outcome of the battle. In their opinion, Yang Tian, Bea, and the little blue dragon should not be able to defeat the sawtooth beasts. Seeing the bodies of the sawtooth beasts all over the ground, Northcliffe was stunned for a moment. He went forward with his scimitar and cut open the chest of one of the sawtooth beasts. He found a colorful crystal that was smaller than a pinky finger. It was the sawtooth beast's beast core. No matter how small a mosquito was, it was still meat. Yang Tian did not mind that these beast cores were too small and did not contain much energy. He went forward with his saber. At this moment, he answered Bea's question. Soul Cutter. Bea was stunned. The two used about 10 minutes to cut open the 47 sawtooth beasts and take their beast cores. After Yang Tian and the others took the beast cores, the 9 silent deer orcs quickly came forward and checked the sawtooth beast corpses one by one. Seeing how the sawtooth beasts died, their expressions became more and more serious. They judged that if their opponents were Yang Tian and the little blue dragon, they would not be able to last long and would be killed. That's it. Yang Tian glanced at the 9 silent deer orcs and asked. Bea looked around. That should be it. We have to leave quickly. Yang Tian nodded. After the battle, the little green tortoise stuck its head out and spat Huey Chan Chan out. After being released by the little green tortoise, Huey Chan Chan looked a little lonely. Yang Tian saw that Huey Chan Chan was not in high spirits and understood what this little girl was thinking. He smiled and patted her shoulder. No one is born a powerhouse. You just have to work hard. You're not a burden to me. Maybe you'll be of great help to me in the future. Really? Huey Chan Chan asked in a doubtful tone. Yes. Yang Tian nodded. After receiving Yang Tian's encouragement, Huey Chan Chan finally smiled. At this moment, the little blue dragon descended from the sky and turned back into a mini dragon, landing on Yang Tian's shoulder. The three quickly walked toward the town and prepared to leave. However, there were several gusts of wind as 9 silent deer orcs blocked Yang Tian's path. One of the lone deer beastmen pointed at Yang Tian with a reprimanding tone and said a lot to Yang Tian's group. After this orc finished speaking, Yang Tian turned and looked at Bea. Bea said helplessly, "He won't let us leave." Bea's words were simple, but Yang Tian understood that these silent deer orcs were actually looking for trouble with them. Bea winked at Yang Tian and whispered, "If we hand over the beast cores we just got, we should be able to bribe them. They'll let us leave after getting some benefits." Now, Yang Tian understood everything. Clearly, the 47 sawtooth beasts were attracted by these orcs. This way, no matter who won or lost, they would get benefits without having to do anything themselves and cause trouble. What a good plan. Who said the orcs weren't smart enough? Yang Tian fell silent after Bea finished speaking. Seeing Yang Tian's silence, Bea added, "From their words, if we don't get some benefits, we won't be able to leave Muddy Island alive." Yang Tian originally wanted a hand over the 47 beast cores to the silent deer orcs. He still had many things to do and didn't want to provoke the powerful silent deer orcs for those worthless beast cores. However, Yang Tian was furious after hearing Bea's words. He hated it when people threatened him. Under Bea's gaze, Yang Tian suddenly raised his head and sneered. The beast cores of these 9 silent deer orcs should be better. When Bea heard this, he could not help but be stunned. In his eyes, Yang Tian seemed to have become a different person. Xiaolong, kill them. Yang Tian suddenly said coldly as he looked at the 9 silent deer orcs blocking his path. The little blue dragon had always been someone who liked to see the world plunged into chaos. When he heard Yang Tian's words, he immediately became excited. His eyes flashed with fighting spirit as he jumped off Yang Tian's shoulder. As for Yang Tian, the red and blue sabers appeared in his hands as he slowly raised them. Seeing Yang Tian's actions and sensing the killing intent emanating from Yang Tian's body, the 9 silent deer orcs were shocked. They had never seen anyone who dared to make a move against the lone deer tribe on Muddy Island. Xiaolong, end this quickly, Yang Tian said coldly and rushed toward a silent deer orc in front of him. Puffed. A silent deer orc who couldn't react in time was beheaded by Yang Tian. When Yang Tian swept past the group of silent deer orcs, blood sprayed into the air and sprinkled down like a rain of blood. A drop of blood landed in the corner of Yang Tian's eye. At this time, Yang Tian's anger finally subsided a little. He knew the reason. His body had fused with the giant god's bloodline and received the giant god's inheritance. It was inevitable that his mind would be affected. This matter would definitely blow up, but Yang Tian didn't regret it at all. He sheathed his saber and turned around. At this time, the other 8 silent beasts were stunned. They hadn't expected Yang Tian to kill one of their companions. They hadn't seen one of their own killed by another race in a very long time. At this time, the killing intent in Yang Tian's eyes didn't dissipate. Killing 1 was killing 9 was killing. The result was the same, wasn't it? From now on, they would be hunted by the silent deer orcs on Muddy Island until they left or killed all the silent deer orcs on the island. After a brief daze, the 8 silent deer orcs came to their senses. Anger filled their minds. The honor of their race made them feel greatly humiliated. The blood in their bodies that had calmed down after a long period of peace suddenly boiled. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Whistling sound could be heard. Wings grew out of the 8 silent deer orcs' backs. They began to transform and shot into the air. At this time, Yang Tian didn't move, but Bea did. A silent deer orc that hadn't yet flown into the air had half its wing chopped off by Bea's saber. Even so, it didn't stop the silent deer orc from flying into the air. Bea was pushed back several steps by the wind created by the silent deer orc's wings before he could stabilize himself. The 8 lonely deer beasts flew into the air and quickly completed their transformation into giant beasts. Roar, the little blue dragon had already transformed into a giant dragon. It flew in the air and roared at the 8 silent deer orcs. This was a declaration of war. Goo-goo-goo, before the little blue dragon's roar disappeared, the 8 silent deer orcs' necks suddenly bulged and made strange noises. Bea looked up at the 9 giant beasts in the air and frowned. He said to Yang Tian, "The silent deer orcs are sending a signal to their brethren. Soon, more and more silent deer orcs will arrive. They won't stop until they die." Bea's voice was filled with worry. Yang Tian said indifferently, "Take Chan Chan and leave before the other silent deer orcs arrive." Okay. Bea immediately nodded. He knew that he wasn't strong enough. Staying away from Yang Tian would allow Yang Tian to focus on the battle. Bea had been in the Sea of Stars for a long time. He was more experienced in running away than Yang Tian. This was the best time to escape because the 8 silent deer orcs were all focused on the little blue dragon in the air. He took out a black stone with runes engraved on it and walked over to Huey Chan Chan. In Yang Tian's eyes, Bea and Huey Chan Chan suddenly disappeared from where they were. Yang Tian didn't sense any ripples in space. At the same time, he could sense their auras. He knew that Bea and Huey Chan Chan were just invisible. Yang Tian didn't need the help of the strange program to inscribe such a simple invisibility rune. The reason why Yang Tian wasn't afraid of the silent deer orcs was because of the strange program. If he couldn't win, he could escape. After Bea activated the rune in his hand, he quickly pulled Huey Chan away. They didn't stop until the rune stone in his hand lost its effect. The two quickly hid in an inconspicuous pile of rocks and watched the battle from 1,000 meters away through the cracks. At this time, Yang Tian was still standing in the same spot. In the sky, the little blue dragon and the 8 silent deer orcs were flying in circles. The lonely deer beast's flying speed in the sky was more than double the speed of the sawtooth beast. It looked like it was on par with the little azure dragon. The little blue dragon chased after one of the silent deer orcs. The other 7 silent deer orcs were constantly harassing the little blue dragon. It was obvious that both sides were testing each other. Yang Tian observed for a while and knew that the little blue dragon wasn't using its full strength. He held his sword and went to the corpse of the silent deer orc he killed. He used his sword to cut open the corpse's chest and used the tip of his sword to pick out a thumb-sized colored crystal. The quality of this beast core was 1 level higher than the sawtooth beast's beast core. In the sky, the 8 silent deer orcs were even more enraged when they saw what Yang Tian was doing. To them, what Yang Tian was doing was an insult to the silent deer orcs. Whoosh! With a howl, one of the silent deer orcs couldn't help but pounce at Yang Tian. Of course, Yang Tian did it on purpose. He wanted to provoke the giant deer orcs. Seeing a silent deer orc coming at him, he grinned. He had achieved his goal. Whoosh! Facing the silent deer orc, Yang Tian threw out Red Knife 15. 15 turned into a red beam of light and charged at the lonely deer beast with an ear-piercing shriek. The silent deer orcs had already seen the power of Yang Tian's sword, so they were constantly on guard. To them, Yang Tian, who had this sword, was much more dangerous than the little blue dragon in the sky. Seeing the red light coming at it, the lonely deer beast suddenly turned its body and dodged Yang Tian's attack while it was charging downwards. After dodging 15's attack, the silent deer orc suddenly opened its mouth and spat out a red flame toward Yang Tian. At this time, the silent deer orc was less than 50 meters away from Yang Tian. Yang Tian didn't expect the silent deer orcs to be able to spit out fire. The temperature of the fire was very high, and it covered a wide area. With a distance of 50 meters and the silent deer orc's speed, the fire that came out of its mouth was above Yang Tian's head in an instant. In the eyes of the silent deer orc, Yang Tian was instantly surrounded by the red flame that it spat out. The silent deer orc was very confident in its high-temperature fire. It should be noted that the fire could vaporize solid rocks. Whoosh! Suddenly, a whistling sound came from behind the silent deer orc again. Immediately, it felt a stabbing pain on its back as a powerful tearing force covered its entire body. Then, it completely lost consciousness. With a loud bang, the giant deer orc's corpse fell to the ground, creating a large crater. The red flame that enveloped Yang Tian also disappeared at the same time. Yang Tian was still standing in the same spot and didn't seem to have moved at all. With his mind power, he wasn't hurt at all. At this time, it could be seen that with Yang Tian as the center, the ground within a radius of 2 meters and more than 10 meters had become full of potholes and black smoke. Some melted magma was still flowing around. Although the fire had disappeared, the high temperature would still be maintained for a short while. Yang Tian jumped out of the burning area and came to the silent deer orc's corpse. He pulled out 15 from the corpse's back. After wiping away the blood on the sword, Yang Tian saw a black dot appear in front of him. At the same time, he felt a strong sense of danger and instinctively dodged to the side. Bang! Then there was a loud sound. Then, the whistling sound reached Yang Tian's ears. The silent deer orc's corpse was smashed to pieces by the object that suddenly landed. Not only that, but there was also a large crater there. When Yang Tian stopped, a 5-meter-tall muscular man with a giant hammer jumped out of the crater. With a bang, he landed in front of Yang Tian, less than 10 meters away from Yang Tian. Smelling the man's scent, Yang Tian quickly determined that he was a powerhouse from the silent deer orc tribe. This silent deer orc was very big. After jumping out of the crater, he only glanced at Yang Tian. Without saying a word, he raised his giant hammer and smashed it at Yang Tian. Chapter 852. Boom! There was a loud explosion. Silent Deer's giant hammer smashed onto the hard rock ground, causing gravel to fly in all directions as it hit Yang Tian's mental energy shield, creating a series of clashing sounds. What a powerful force! Yang Tian kept on moving until he finally got rid of the feeling of being locked onto by the enemy's consciousness. Gugu, after the hammer hit, the lonely deer elite stopped as a strange sound came from his chest. When the flying rock settled, Yang Tian saw a giant hole with a diameter of 10 meters. The edges of the hole were full of cracks that extended into the distance. The power of this hammer was simply too strong. Even if Yang Tian was wearing the giant god armor, he would still be severely injured if he was hit by this hammer. The giant hammer in the hands of this burly man was not some divine weapon. It was just a simple square boulder. A hole was cut in it, and a hard tree trunk was inserted into it. Then, a beast tendon was used to wrap around it. The weight of the hammer was about a few thousand kilograms. If this stone hammer fell into the hands of a weak person, it was estimated that this stone hammer would be destroyed before it could even crack the ground. After the cries, the 4 lonely deer beasts that were attacking the little blue dragons scattered and flew into the distance. In this short period of time, the little blue dragon suddenly exploded and killed 3 lonely deer beasts in a row. Seeing that his own kind were no match for the little blue dragon, the lonely deer elite ordered them to leave so that they wouldn't be sacrificed in vain. After the 4 lonely deer beasts flew away, the little blue dragon turned around and pounced at the lonely deer elite standing on the ground. Boom! As soon as it was above the lonely deer elite, the little blue dragon opened its mouth and spat out a golden dragon flame. The dragon flame fell from the sky and covered a larger area. It was about to engulf the lonely deer elite. At this moment, the lone deer tribe expert opened his mouth and shot out a red flame. This was a very condensed flame. When it met the little blue dragon's dragon flame in the air, it quickly spread out and merged with the little blue dragon's golden dragon flame, creating a series of crackling sounds. This process only lasted for a short few seconds before the 2 types of flames quickly disappeared, leaving only a scorching heat that spread in all directions. Whoosh! Boom! Seeing that the flames couldn't burn this lone deer expert, the little blue dragon used a powerful electric current. A blue pillar of lightning thicker than an adult's thigh shot out from the little blue dragon's horn and struck the lone deer expert. However, even under such a powerful electric current, the fella remained motionless. It was like a huge rock that could conduct electricity, and it was not hurt at all. Yang Tian noticed that the little blue dragon's lightning didn't actually touch the lone deer expert's body. Instead, it was blocked by the lone deer expert's own energy. The little blue dragon was very surprised that both of its attacks had been neutralized. It immediately swung its tail and flew to the side. At this moment, the lone deer expert suddenly moved. Its huge body shot up and grabbed the little blue dragon's tail with one hand. This guy's speed was also extremely terrifying. The little azure dragon did not even have time to react to his sudden movement. The lone deer expert took a deep breath and spun around the little blue dragon's tail. The extreme speed of the spin caused the little blue dragon's body to straighten. After one round, the lone deer expert let go of the little blue dragon. The little blue dragon couldn't control its huge body and kept rolling on the ground. Finally, with a boom, it crashed into a small hill hundreds of meters away and stopped. The little blue dragon's body rubbed against the ground, creating a huge curved trench in the hard rock. Shaking its huge head, the little blue dragon flipped over and climbed up from the ground. It raised its head and roared angrily, the dragon mane on its neck standing up. After lowering his head, he opened his mouth and a golden dragon flame shot out of his mouth. It formed a huge pillar of fire that shot toward the lone deer tribe. This dragon flame was extremely condensed and extremely fast. It was like a golden drill that was constantly rotating. It stuck close to the ground, and wherever it passed, the rocks would be vaporized and melted, forming a trench that was more than 10 meters deep and wide. In the face of this powerful pillar of fire, the lone deer tribe expert's eyes shone with excitement. He didn't dodge. Instead, he opened his arms and leaned forward. He opened his mouth and spat out a red pillar of fire. This red pillar of fire wasn't as thick as the one the little blue dragon spat out, but it was more condensed. Its speed wasn't any slower than the one the little blue dragon spat out. Boom! In an instant, the two fire pillars collided with each other, emitting a thunderous sound. The powerful energy shockwave, along with the airflow, formed a hurricane that swept across the surroundings. With two popping sounds, Yang Tian stomped his feet on the ground, sinking his legs into the ground. At the same time, he unleashed even more powerful spiritual energy. The energy from the two pillars of fire continued to shatter the rocks on the ground layer by layer. Soon, they were turned into dust and gray sand that spread out, blocking Yang Tian's vision. At the same time, the surrounding temperature kept on rising. The dust in the air began to melt and then condense together before falling down, forming a unique lava rain. This process lasted for 5 minutes. In the end, the lone deer expert was defeated. The little blue dragon's golden dragon flame instantly reached the lone deer expert. The lone deer expert immediately used his giant stone hammer to block. But what the lone deer expert didn't expect was that as soon as his giant stone hammer blocked the little blue dragon's high-temperature dragon flame, the dragon flame suddenly disappeared, and the giant head of the little blue dragon appeared in front of him. Boom! There was another loud bang. Little azure dragon used its head to knock against the stone hammer. The force of the collision forced the lone deer tribe's experts to retreat. As for the little blue dragon, it opened its eyes wide and began to crawl faster and faster on the ground, not giving the opponent a chance to retrieve the stone hammer. Just like that, the lone deer expert was dragged back by the little blue dragon. His feet kept on grinding against the ground, sinking deeper and deeper. In the end, his legs were completely buried in the ground, and his back smashed into a giant rock. Only then did the little blue dragon stop. This time, the little blue dragon had won a round. Seeing the power of the little blue dragon, the lone deer expert rushed out of the rubble covering him. He threw away the stone hammer in his hand, took off his clothes, spread his wings, and flew into the air. In the blink of an eye, he returned to his original form. This was a giant lone deer beast that was 3 times larger than the previous ones. It had a pair of fleshy wings that emitted a green light. Its entire body was covered in green and yellow scales. The biggest difference between it and the other lone deer beasts was that this giant lone deer beast had a green horn on its forehead. Yang Tian was shocked. This lone deer beast was too similar to the unicorns on Earth. The little blue dragon also flew into the air. The two beasts faced each other from hundreds of meters away. An intense battle in the air was about to begin. Yang Tian looked at the domineering little blue dragon in the air and smiled. After consuming the yellow dragon's Dragon Ball, the little blue dragon was growing faster and faster through this intense battle. Chapter 853. In the sky, the little blue dragon slowly swung its tail with a cold look in its eyes. Opposite it, the lonely deer beast flapped its wings that were glowing with a green light and pointed its green horn at the little blue dragon. Its eyes were equally cold. In the sky, the two beasts were in a stalemate for about 3 minutes. Suddenly, the little blue dragon moved. With a swing of its tail, it charged toward the lonely deer beast. Suddenly, the green horn on the lonely deer beast's forehead vibrated and let out a hum sound. This was a sound wave attack. Powerful sound waves were emitted, and the gravel on the ground trembled before turning into stone powder. The spirit shield that Yang Tian released almost dissipated under the impact of the sound waves. The little blue dragon, who was closest to the lonely deer beast, suddenly rolled in pain in the air under the impact of the sound waves and fell to the ground. Boom! The little blue dragon's huge body slid close to the ground for a few hundred meters before coming to a stop. Seeing this, Yang Tian's heart tightened. He was afraid that the little blue dragon would be injured. Just as he was about to go forward, he saw the little blue dragon get up and shake its heavy head. Roar! The little blue dragon raised its head and let out an angry roar at the lonely deer beast in the sky. The golden dragon mane on its neck stood up again. With a swing of its tail, the little blue dragon flew into the sky again. Whoosh! At this time, the lonely deer beast took the opportunity and dove down. It aimed its horn at the little blue dragon's neck. At the same time, the green horn vibrated again and emitted a shockwave with shocking impact. If the little blue dragon's neck was pierced by the horn, it would definitely be severely injured. This was because the little blue dragon's weakness was its neck. The scales were fine, but it was also the weakest. Its defense was not as good as other parts of its body. As for the little blue dragon, after being attacked by the sound wave, it suddenly became confused again and kept shaking its head. Seeing that the little blue dragon's consciousness was affected by its sound wave attack again, a smug look appeared in the lonely deer's eyes. When it was about to come into contact with the little blue dragon, its eyes glowed fiercely. At this moment, Yang Tian couldn't help but want to make a move to save the little blue dragon. His hands that were holding the saber tightened. Unexpectedly, the little blue dragon's confused eyes suddenly became clear. It swung its head, opened its mouth, and bit down on the lone deer beast's greenhorn. At the same time, its soft body wrapped around the lonely deer beast. Boom! Just like that, the two giant beasts were entangled together. They fell from a height of 100 meters and fell to the ground, rolling continuously. The two gigantic beasts rolled on the ground, causing the hard ground to tremble and emit rumbling sounds. Gravel flew in all directions and raised a cloud of dust. Boom! Suddenly, the two giant beasts spat out flames at almost the same time. Their entangled bodies were instantly enveloped in a thick, high-temperature flame. After a few seconds, when the flames dissipated, the little blue dragon and the lonely deer beast had separated. The two giant beasts were about 10 meters away from each other as they coldly stared at each other. At this moment, the little blue dragon and the lonely deer beast were both covered in blood. Many parts of their bodies were burnt black. It was a horrible sight to behold. Suddenly, a gurgling sound came from the lonely deer beast's body. At the same time, a powerful energy wave was emitted from the lonely deer beast's huge body. Its body slowly turned red and expanded. The little blue dragon coldly watched the changes in its opponent. At this moment, it shook its body. The black color that covered its body, the melted sand, and dragon scales fell off one by one. At this time, the little blue dragon's body slowly swelled up as if it was being pumped with air. The color of its body was also changing from its original golden color to a grayish-black color. As the golden dragon scales on the little blue dragon's body fell off, the skin under the dragon scales became as tough as the bark of an old tree. There were even black spikes growing out of its back. When the little blue dragon's body changed, a powerful energy wave was also emitted from its body. It was not weaker than the lonely deer beasts. In fact, it was even more powerful. In the battle just now, it was clear that the little blue dragon and the lonely deer beast were tied. At this time, the two giant beasts were ready to use their most powerful attacks. In the end, the lonely deer beast became like a piece of red-hot iron. Its body emitted a scorching energy. The rocks under its feet slowly turned red and began to melt. Boom! Suddenly, the surface of the lonely deer beast's body was covered in red flames. At this time, the little blue dragon looked at the lonely deer beast with disdain in its dragon eyes. Immediately, dark golden dragon flames appeared on the surface of its body as well. Rumble! Suddenly, there was a rumbling sound coming from all directions. The dense herd of beasts was like a tidal wave that came from afar. They were rushing over, and the ground kept on shaking from their steps. At the same time, there were also black clouds flying over from all directions. These black clouds were naturally the lonely deer beasts that were flying in the sky. At this time, the little blue dragon looked at the lonely deer beast with even more disdain. It was as if it was saying that the lonely deer beast could not win against it, so it could only ask for help from its own kind. The lonely deer beast was extremely arrogant. How could it allow the little blue dragon to look down on it? Its neck suddenly swelled up, and it let out a series of goo-goo-goo sounds. When the herd of beasts that were rushing overheard the sound, they slowly stopped. The lonely deer beast in the sky also circled around this large circle, forming a circle with a diameter of more than 1,000 meters. So many lonely deer beasts. Hui Chan exclaimed in surprise when she saw the dense herd of beasts in the sky from the rubble. Bea nodded and said worriedly, "Judging by the commotion and momentum, there are at least tens of thousands of lonely deer beasts. We're in trouble now. Then what should we do?" Hui Chan asked anxiously. Bea frowned and said, "There are so many lonely deer beasts. Even if they are all low-level beasts, Yang Tian and the others won't be able to handle them all. We can only run and find a chance to leave Muddy Island." With that, Bea smiled bitterly in his heart. Being surrounded by so many lonely deer beasts, even if they wanted to escape, their chances of success were slim. When the herd of beasts stopped, the little blue dragon and its opponent crouched on the ground and began to slowly retreat at the same time. They only stopped when they were about 100 meters away from each other. At this time, the two beasts' eyes were filled with determination. After a short moment of silence, the little blue dragon and the lonely deer beast suddenly moved and charged toward each other. They were like two balls of flames, one golden and one red. In the blink of an eye, they crashed into each other. At this time, the flames that burst out from their bodies suddenly became more intense and spread out in all directions. What spread out even faster was the shockwave that was created from the collision. Yang Tian, who was the closest, stabbed the blue sword in his hand into the ground with the tip of the sword facing outwards. He then unleashed a stream of sword chi to split the energy that was coming at him so that he would not be blown away by the powerful shockwave. Boom! At this time, a loud explosion was heard by Yang Tian. The two beasts crashed into each other. The energy that exploded was like a small nuclear bomb. Chapter 854. After the shock wave dissipated, the dust in the air slowly dissipated as well. Roar! A deep dragon roar could be heard. What appeared in Yang Tian's eyes was the little blue dragon. The powerful lonely deer beast had already turned into dust. The little blue dragon had a colorful beast core the size of a fist in its mouth. Although it was covered in wounds, its eyes were shining with excitement. Yang Tian gave the little blue dragon a thumbs up. He was happy for the little blue dragon. The little blue dragon had used up a lot of energy in this battle. After killing the powerful lonely deer beast and eating the colorful beast core, it shrunk its body and returned to Yang Tian's shoulder. It then closed its eyes to rest. Cough, cough. Hui. Chan removed the gravel covering her body, coughed, and stood up. Bea, who was also buried under the gravel, also jumped up. At this time, the surrounding beasts were forced far away by the shockwave. Since the dust had not completely dissipated, it was the best time to leave. Just as Hui Chan and Bea stood up from the gravel, they saw Yang Tian appear next to them. "We can't stay here for long. Let's leave first," Yang Tian said plainly as he looked around. Seeing that the lonely deer beasts were approaching, he frowned. Now that the little blue dragon could not fight, it would not be easy to break out of the lonely deer beast's encirclement. Yang Tian thought about it and put away the two swords in his hands and the giant god armor. He then jumped into the air and instantly transformed into a golden dragon that was more than 20 meters long. It looked exactly the same as the little blue dragon from before. Seeing Yang Tian transform into a dragon, Bea's eyes were filled with disbelief. He thought to himself, is Yang Tian not a human but a dragon? But judging from Yang Tian's aura, Yang Tian was clearly a human. Yang Tian, who had transformed into a giant dragon, landed on the ground. While Bea was in a daze, Hui, Chan Chan laughed happily. She looked at the little blue dragon on top of Yang Tian's head and then jumped onto his back. She then said to Yang Tian, "Hurry up, Brother Yang Tian will take us away." Only then did Bea react. He hesitated for a moment before jumping onto Yang Tian's back. Rumble. At this moment, the ground trembled again. The lone deer bee soldiers finally moved and rushed toward this place. Roar. At this moment, Yang Tian's eyes shone with determination. He raised his head and let out a roar. Then, he quickly ran forward. Yang Tian's speed wasn't any slower than the little blue dragon's. When he sprinted on the ground, he was like a huge yellow arrow that shot straight ahead. When he encountered a giant rock, Yang Tian didn't even try to dodge it. Instead, he directly crashed into it, shattering the 1,000-ton rock into pieces. To Yang Tian, this feeling was exhilarating. The hard rock was like tofu to him. Soon, Yang Tian met with a lone deer beast horde. Similarly, Yang Tian violently crashed into them. Wherever he went, the giant lone deer beast would be knocked away by Yang Tian. Some were even killed. Seeing the lone deer beast corpses that were smashed into pieces by Yang Tian, Bea gripped his golden dragon mane with both hands and sighed. There were beast cores in the lone deer beast corpses. It was such a pity that they were wasted just like that. In less than 3 minutes, Yang Tian rushed out of the encirclement of the lone deer beasts. When his vision cleared, Yang Tian jumped up and flew up. He broke through the beast horde on the ground, but the lone deer beasts in the sky were very fast. At this moment, there was a large group of lone deer beasts chasing after Yang Tian. Yang Tian, who was flying in the air, was even faster. After a few minutes, he had left the beast horde far behind. Just as Yang Tian was about to stop flying and let out a sigh of relief, a young man suddenly appeared in front of him. This person had a head of flowing red hair and a handsome face. He was dressed in black and had his arms crossed as he stood in front of Yang Tianqian. This person's appearance was very sudden, and he did not have the unique aura of the beasts. His clothes were not made of beast hides, but of silk. It matched his temperament very well. He seemed to be a human. Yang Tian was about to change his direction so that he wouldn't bump into this person, but to his surprise, the young man suddenly extended his left hand toward Yang Tian. A powerful force was emitted from his hand. Pung! Yang Tian crashed into this force. His body that was moving at high speed felt like it had crashed into an extremely thick metal plate, and there was a loud bang. Yang Tian felt like his head had been hit hard. It was so painful that he almost fainted. Just as Yang Tian's huge dragon body was about to break through this force, the young man in black slightly pulled back his left hand and then extended it again. A soft force came and knocked Yang Tian back. Yang Tian, as well as Hui, Chan Chan, and Bea, who were sitting on him, suddenly felt the world spinning around them as they rolled on the ground. Yang Tian's gigantic dragon body rolled on the ground and only stopped when it crashed into a boulder. Bea, Hui, and Chan Chan, who were sitting on him, were thrown far away. Yang Tian used his strong will to overcome the pain in his head and his entire body. He slowly stood up from the ground, shaking his body. When he turned his head, he saw the young man in black suddenly appear less than 50 meters away from him, looking at him with cold eyes. Yang Tian knew that this young man was definitely an elite. Although the force that he gave off when he used his power was far weaker than Tingling's, he was not someone that he could defeat right now. Yin Yin #@ The black-clothed young man crossed his arms and looked at Yang Tian coldly as he spoke. Bea crawled up from the ground and quickly walked over to Yang Tian. He said to Yang Tian, he's Wulu from the Lone Deer tribe. He also told us to give up or else he'll eat us. Wulu, do you know him? Yang Tian turned back to human form and put on the giant god armor. He stared coldly at the young man in black and asked Bea. Bea smiled bitterly. He's one of the 5 strongest members of the Lone Deer tribe on Muddy Island. I didn't think we'd be so unlucky to meet such an opponent. After saying that, Northcliffe shook his head helplessly. In his view, Yang Tian and the little blue dragon couldn't defeat such an opponent. There was only one outcome. They would all be cooked and eaten by the lone deer tribe. Giving up and obediently surrendering wasn't Yang Tian's style. Moreover, although Yang Tian had turned into a dragon, he hadn't used his full strength. It was hard to say who would win. Yang Tian looked at Wu Lu's cold eyes and reached out. Red Knife 15 and Blue Knife appeared in his hands. Chapter 855. Seeing that Yang Tian had taken out his weapon, Wu Lu frowned and suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was less than 10 meters away from Yang Tian, and he threw a punch at Yang Tian. So fast, Yang Tian sighed and dodged to the side. However, Wu Lu's fist had already locked onto him. Yang Tian felt that no matter how he dodged, he would be hit. Bang, bang, bang. A series of punches could be heard on Yang Tian's body. Wu Lu's punches kept on landing on Yang Tian's chest. After taking countless punches, Yang Tian's body was suddenly thrown back. He slid for more than 10 meters in the air and slammed into the ground. The divine Colossus armor had absorbed most of the punches for Yang Tian, but a small part of the force had entered his body. The impact made Yang Tian feel as if his organs had shifted and his chest was stuffy. When he got up from the ground with the help of his saber, he coughed out a mouthful of liquid. Yang Tian coughed out a mouthful of blood. After spitting out the mouthful of blood, Yang Tian felt much more relaxed. He looked down at his chest and saw that the divine Colossus armor had not left a single mark on it under Wu Lu's continuous attacks. He was finally relieved. Seeing that Yang Tian could still stand up after taking hundreds of punches, Wu Lu was surprised. Soon, he turned his attention to the divine Colossus armor that Yang Tian was wearing. Yin %% hashtag. Wu Lu looked at Yang Tian with an expressionless face and said another sentence. Bea looked at Wu Lu, who had just walked past him, and sighed. He said to Yang Tian, "He asked you what kind of armor you are wearing that is so tough. Also, he said that he only used 50% of his strength. He doesn't know if your armor can withstand his full power." This was clearly a provocation. Yang Tian smiled, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and said indifferently, "If you want to know the result, then give it a try." Just as Northcliffe translated Yang Tian's words, Wu Lu moved. Just like last time, he disappeared. This time, Wu Lu appeared above Yang Tian's head and punched towards Yang Tian's head. His strength was at least twice as strong as before. Although it appeared as if Wu Lu had only sent out a single punch, in reality, he had sent out over 100 punches in an instant. The power of each punch was stronger than the one before. In Wu Lu's eyes, Yang Tian was still standing in the same spot without dodging. However, just as his fist energy was about to hit Yang Tian, a black sphere suddenly appeared above Yang Tian's head. This was the black hole released by Yang Tian. As soon as it appeared, it emitted a powerful suction force. Wu Lu's heavy fist energy was all sucked into the black hole. At this time, the black hole chain in Yang Tian's world of energy began to spin rapidly. After Wu Lu's fist energy was absorbed by the black hole, entered Yang Tian's world of energy and was instantly broken down by the black hole chain. It was converted into energy and dispersed into the world of energy. He had originally thought that this attack would be able to heavily injure Yang Tian, but he hadn't expected that the black sphere would suddenly appear and absorb all the energy from his attack. Wu Lu's reaction was very fast, and his body suddenly moved to the side. As one of the 5 strongest experts of the lone deer tribe, Wu Lu had naturally experienced countless battles. This abnormal situation made him feel an intense sense of danger. However, no matter how fast he reacted, he couldn't be faster than Yang Tian's psychic force perception and powerful will. In the process of moving horizontally, a black sphere suddenly appeared in the direction of Wu Lu's movement. This black sphere also emitted a powerful attractive force. The surrounding spatial energy was affected by the attractive force and started to distort. Wu Lu didn't dare to touch this black sphere before figuring out what it was. His eyes suddenly widened, and his rapidly moving body came to an abrupt stop. Wu Lu only stopped for a moment before his body rose up rapidly. However, a black ball appeared above his head once more. Wu Lu gritted his teeth and instantly changed his direction. However, another black hole appeared in the direction he was moving. Just like that, in less than 3 seconds, Yang Tian had used 12 black holes to surround Wu Lu. The positions of the 12 black holes had been precisely calculated. The strange program cooperated with Yang Tian and transmitted the results to Yang Tian at an unimaginable speed. Yang Tian then used the results to make the black holes appear in the corresponding positions. As soon as the 12 black holes appeared, they created a special force field and bound Wu Lu. Yang Tian had used this method to deal with Kuang Xing before. Wu Lu's strength was clearly much stronger than Kuang Xing's, but the current Yang Tian was also much stronger than before. The energy stored in his energy world was also much more. Even so, Yang Tian also felt that the power of the chain of black holes could only temporarily trap Wu Lu. With his current strength, even if he worked together with the little blue dragon, they might not be Wu Lu's match. If he tried to fight Wu Lu to the death, he would be courting death. Roar, Wu Lu, who was temporarily trapped by the force field created by the 12 black holes, opened his eyes wide and let out a bestial roar. At the same time, a powerful force suddenly exploded from his body. The 12 black holes were actually forced to move at the same time. Yang Tian narrowed his eyes and gritted his teeth. With a thought, the chain of black holes in his energy world once again sped up. Wu Lu's burst of power had almost broken free from Yang Tian's restraint. However, after this burst of power, Yang Tian could clearly feel that Wu Lu's strength had weakened. Yang Tian swung his sword 15 times, and a blue sword chi rushed into the force field created by the 12 black holes, but it was absorbed by the force field. When Yang Tian saw this result, he felt helpless. While he was trapping Wu Lu, the power he could use to attack Wu Lu from the outside would also be greatly reduced. Let's go. Yang Tian no longer hesitated. He immediately turned around and yelled at Bea, Huey, and Chan Chan. The little blue dragon reacted the fastest. In a few blinks of an eye, he had transformed into a giant dragon. Roar when the trapped Wu Lu saw Yang Tian and the others escape. He once again let out a furious roar. He could only watch as Yang Tian and the others disappeared into a small dot. Where do we go now? Yang Tian asked as he closed his eyes and felt the changes in the chain of black holes' energy. The further away they were from Wu Lu, the weaker Yang Tian's control over the 12 black holes would be. Wu Lu could break free at any time and chase after them. Wu Lu, who had been tricked once, would not give Yang Tian another chance to trap him. Bea had a serious expression. He thought about it, and when he saw a triangular black hole in the distance, he pointed at it and said, "Right now, we can only escape to Mount Mai and enter the Mai cave. I hope we can break in. Although it is dangerous, at least we will not be killed immediately. As long as we are alive, we will have a chance." Mai cave? What is that place? Yang Tian suddenly opened his eyes and asked with gritted teeth. At this time, he could feel that Wu Lu was about to break free. Chapter 856. I heard that the Mai Cave is a forbidden area of the Lone Deer tribe. It is filled with rune traps and is filled with danger. Whenever the Lone Deer tribe's elites reach the end of their lifespan, they will enter the Mai Cave. This is because, according to the legends, the Mai Cave holds the secret of eternal life. However, for countless years, none of the Lone Deer tribe's elites who have entered have returned alive. Other than the Lone Deer tribe's elites, many other races have entered as well, but the results are the same. As Bea spoke, the little blue dragon had already flown to Mount Mai. This was a pitch-black mountain that looked like it was made of coal. It was about 1,000 meters tall and covered an area of dozens of square kilometers. As soon as they approached Mount Mai, a group of lone deer beasts flew over and blocked the little blue dragon's path. The little blue dragon hadn't fully recovered yet. Yang Tian stood up, raised his blue blade, and slashed forward. A powerful, formless saber chi shot out from the blue saber and rushed forward. At this time, the little blue dragon swung its tail and suddenly sped up. This blade, aura, didn't have much destructive power, but it split the beasts in front of it apart. The little blue dragon followed behind the blade, aura, and flew past the beasts before they could close in. At this time, Bea had already stopped talking. Seeing Yang Tian and the little blue dragon's silent and exquisite cooperation, he couldn't help but sigh. This was too much of a tacit understanding. The Maui Cave was a forbidden area for the lone deer tribe. At the same time, it was also an extremely dangerous place. That was why there weren't many guards. After breaking through 3 groups of beasts, the little blue dragon had already flown halfway up Mount Maui. Diagonally ahead, there was a huge stone door. In front of the stone door, there was a tall, trapezoidal altar. On both sides of the altar stood 12 enormous lone deer beasts. From afar, they looked like stone statues. Roar! They were still 1,000 meters away when a furious roar suddenly came from behind Yang Tian. This voice was all too familiar to Yang Tian. He didn't expect that Wu Lu would chase after him as soon as he broke free. Without Yang Tian's reminder, the little blue dragon's eyes widened. Its tough, ancient bark-like skin suddenly swelled. Its flying speed suddenly increased by at least 1/3. When the 12 lonely deer beast guards on the altar saw the little blue dragon charging over, they flew up and blocked the little blue dragon's path. At the same time, they bulged their necks and made goo-goo-goo sounds to warn their fellow beasts. At this moment, Yang Tian, who was standing on the little blue dragon's back, turned around and looked behind him. Wu Lu had already appeared in his line of sight. In the blink of an eye, he had grown from a small black dot to a point where he could see his angry face. Wu Lu's speed was too fast. Yang Tian glanced behind him and turned his head. He waved the blue saber in his hand and slashed out another powerful saber chi. Pong! With a muffled sound, the 2 lonely deer beasts in front of the little blue dragon were knocked to the side by Yang Tian's saber chi. The little blue dragon lowered its head slightly and pointed its dragon horns forward. A thick bolt of electricity shot forward. The electricity, which was like a tree root, instantly hit several lonely deer beasts. Although it didn't kill them directly, it made them temporarily lose their ability to fly. Pong, pong, pong. Next, Yang Tian, Bea, Hui, and Chan Chan all crouched on the little blue dragon's back. A series of crashing sounds could be heard. Then, there was a loud boom. The little blue dragon didn't care about the thickness of the stone door and crashed into it. This was the most dangerous moment. If they couldn't enter the Maui Cave and were caught by Wu Lu, they would be in trouble. Even if they killed Wu Lu, there were still 4 other powerful beings who were on par with Wu Lu. The stone door, which was several meters thick and made of the hardest cliff rocks on Muddy Island and protected by a talisman array, was smashed into pieces by the little azure dragon. After crashing into the cave, the little blue dragon stuck to the bottom of the cave and slid forward. It only stopped when it hit the stone wall at the corner. In order to break the stone door, the little blue dragon had paid a great price. The 2 dragon horns on its head were already crooked. Thick, red blood flowed out from the roots of the dragon horns like spring water. Its forehead was also caved in. Xiao Long, when the little blue dragon stopped, Yang Tian immediately jumped down from the little blue dragon and called out softly. The little blue dragon opened its eyes, looking dispirited. Yang Tian was a blur in its vision. Before it fainted, it willed its body to shrink rapidly. At this moment, Wu Lu had already landed on the altar. He frowned as he looked at the cave that had been smashed open. This cave, which was dozens of meters in diameter, was the Wu Lu tribe's forbidden area. It was also the most dangerous place on Muddy Island. The lone deer tribe's experts, who were even stronger than Wu Lu, had never come out after entering. Wu Lu was extremely conflicted as he looked to the Maui Cave. As an expert of the lone deer tribe, it was a great humiliation for him to let his opponent escape. But once he entered, there was no chance of survival. To maintain his dignity and chase after Yang Tian and the others, or to give up, his life was more important. This was an extremely difficult choice for Wu Lu. The Lone Deer tribe's hierarchy was very strict. The 12 guards squatted on both sides of the altar, not daring to even breathe loudly in front of the silent Wu Lu. They understood that the powerhouse in front of them could easily shift the blame to them. While Wu Lu was struggling internally, four figures suddenly descended from the sky. There were 2 men and 2 women, all of them wearing black clothes. Of the 2 young men, one was extremely strong. He was 2.5 meters tall and had bulging muscles all over his body, giving off a powerful aura. The other figure was even smaller than Wu Lu. His eyes were very small, and he looked very shrewd. The 2 young women were extremely beautiful. One of them had a seductive aura, while the other was delicate and pitiful. These 4 youths, along with Wu Lu, were the top 5 experts of the Muddy Islands Lone Deer tribe. They looked young, but they were all old monsters who had lived for who knew how long. Wu Lu, what do we do now? Your opponent entered the Mai Cave. This is our tribe's forbidden area. You're responsible for it being invaded by a few outsiders. The shrewd-looking young man smiled faintly as he looked at Wu Lu. Bei Lu, you're too harsh with your words. It's not all Wu Lu's fault. He's not even a guard here. The delicate and pitiful young woman looked at the shrewd-looking man with dissatisfaction. After the woman finished speaking, the 12 guards who were prostrating on the ground were so nervous that their bodies started to tremble. Mei Lu, you're trying to push all the blame onto these 12 guards. Their strength is far inferior to that of the non-human kind. Before the young man named Bei Lu could finish speaking, Wu Lu's figure flashed and turned into a black shadow, rushing into the Mai Cave. Wu Lu had already made his choice. He chose the honor of the Wu Lu tribe's warriors. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.